Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another Genshin Impact video, and this is one that I'm doing for the very first time. I've never really done something like this in terms of looking at Genshin Impact and giving my personal feedback to MiHoYo in the form of the surveys. I've obviously done the surveys in my spare time, especially for the 30k more rewards, but I'm sitting down right now to record this on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/MurderofBirds, and MiHoYo has recently come out with a survey asking for player feedback, and I thought for the first time, I think it'd be really nice if I got my community together and we collectively talked about things that we would like to see implemented in the game, whether it's feedback, criticism, quality of life improvement, future content that we'd really like for them to implement in the game, or at the very least, voice our concerns about those things. And so here we are. So we have new survey and rewards await. Dear traveler, follow the link below to fill out a survey so that Paimon can keep those developers busy and make the world of Teyvat become even better and more beautiful. Answers cannot be edited after submitting the survey, so please be sure to fill it out carefully. As a token, we'll give 30k more when it's done. Travelers' opinions are extremely important to us, so Paimon hopes that you can help us by completing this survey. This survey is a collective effort of my overall community. Over the last week, I've asked people to submit any type of inquiries, any type of feedback that they had about Genshin Impact, because I want this to kind of stand out as its own video to kind of give either inspiration or ideas to anyone who feels the same way about features that they want implemented into the game. I really enjoy this game, but we can all agree that there are things in this game that definitely can improve. There are things in this game that have to improve, and ultimately MiHoYo is asking us for our input. And if the game was so star-spangled awesome, they wouldn't be like, hey community, we want your feedback, if they thought their game was perfect. Nothing in the world is perfect. Criticism is always valid. I think it matters just as much how you deliver your criticism as much as the message of your criticism. Regardless, I don't think it's worth being right at the expense of not caring about how you get your point across. I'm personally just going to talk about how I feel about the game, going through it point by point, and at the very end where we type out our feedback, I'm just going to pretty much put together a list of topics and just go down the list of what can ultimately be implemented and what can be better. So hopefully that sounds good. Hopefully you guys enjoy that. And without further ado, let us start. What year were you born in? Ladies and gentlemen, I was born on a beautiful summer afternoon on June 2nd, 1990. I am male. Which of the following platforms have you been playing on Genshin in the last month? That would be good old PC with a PS4 controller, because I'm a noob. Based on your experience playing Genshin Impact, what do you think of Genshin Impact in general? I feel like this is what is going to be very divisive for a lot of people, and this is also where I have to reiterate that everybody's experience with this game is valid. Whether you are a casual gamer, whether you are a hardcore gamer, whether you're a content creator, or whether you're not a content creator, I don't think any one experience of this game triumphs another. Obviously, everyone has their own investment when it comes to why they play the game. If some people are content creators and they feel that the game is boring, they're automatically going to feel conflicted about people who play Genshin and say that the experience is awesome and it's great and it's perfect, because that's conflicting ideals. It's like this person's, you know, lacking content and needs something to do in the game, and therefore the experience isn't the best that it can be for them, versus someone that's like, bro, I only have 20 minutes to play this game per day and it's fucking awesome and I love it and it's great. I think both opinions are valid. I just think we need to try to find a way to come to a middle understanding without shitting on how other people play or experience a game, or simply saying that they don't care about the game or the game doesn't matter, or whatever the case might be. I play this game from a lore standpoint, from a character standpoint, from a world building standpoint. I'm not really looking for combat to be my main priority when it comes to content, whether it's streaming or recording a video for YouTube, right? You know, Spiral Abyss isn't something that I look forward to doing every other week, and so my experience and what I want out of Genshin is different than the average content creator, and I know that that can conflict with some people too, but I'm going to say I'm somewhat interested. It's somewhat interesting. I always say somewhat. I don't like saying perfect, 10 out of 10, best game ever, because there's always going to be something that I can nitpick, that I can criticize for the game. But for me, at least, I like that the patch that came out for 2.5 was easygoing, because I already have a fuck ton on my plate when it comes to what I'm looking forward to for Genshin. And so I already have to, I still have to read artifacts. I still need to read weapons. I still need to read books. I still need to do the rest of the character hangout. And I'm personally overwhelmed. So from my perspective, there's already enough keeping me going and there's more to look forward to. So that's my personal perspective. Based on your experience playing Genshin Impact, what do you think of the following content in general? Playing through Genshin Impact's, okay, so this is gonna be this is gonna be very exciting, okay? Playing through Genshin Impact's world quests. I will say this, for every 10 world quests that are in this game, there's probably 1 or 2 that I'm genuinely interested in from a lore perspective. The rest of the world, a lot of these world quests are very very miss for me. A lot of them feel like they are a fetch quest or something mundane for the sake of just being, you know, a little bit of free resources for the player. Personally, I don't want there to be this misconception that because I focus on lore, every single thing that's given to me in this game is a godsend that I have to fucking worship the ground it walks on. I do think world quest implementation could be better. I'm gonna stick with neutral on this because there are some great fucking world quests. The thing that I hate about some of the world quests is that they don't go the extra mile. Why aren't some of these world quests voice acted? Why aren't the story-oriented world quests at the very least voice acted? Surumi Island, all of that should have been voice acted. The first world quest of Enkanomiya should have been completely voice acted. And even some of the other minor ones like the Masanori quests, the Higi village quests, the Ladocha quest, like a lot of those I feel like could be a lot better. But for the most part, for the average gamer, right? Because again, I'm a content creator, so I'm looking at this from a content creator lens. I think most people don't want to just read shit more than they're playing shit. And I think world quests could definitely improve in that department. So I'm going to remain neutral on this. I'm going to remain neutral on this personally, but I wouldn't be surprised if everybody else or most of the community is on the boring or very boring side, but it's hardly interesting for majority of the world quests that the game gives us. Advancing main plot lines of Genshin Impact, i.e. Archon Quests. This is probably Genshin Impact at its best. Dainsley, Archon Quests, story quests related to characters is Genshin Impact's like potential. I don't think anyone, there's always something to criticize. Like I said, like there are so many people that had a problem with the Inazuma Archon Quest, and I know you're pitting that up against the Mondstadt Archon Quest and the Liyue Archon Quest, especially Liyue's. I think that one is, in a lot of people's eyes, the best that miHoYo has ever delivered in terms of Archon Quests thus far. But I would say that this is what most people are invested in. They're invested in the story of the Traveler, our sibling, you know, and all the beats along the way with meeting these new Archons in these new regions and the plot slowly being forwarded. Even if it's not all about the Traveler's story, it's about the journey. It's about the journey to a land of freedom, a land of contracts, a land of eternity, a land of war, a land of, you know, knowledge or whatever the case might be. And then they throw in some Dainsleif in there that kind of teases like future end game potential with Celestia and Conry and all that stuff. So I don't think it's even an argument. I don't even think it's up for debate. I think the Archon Quest is the cream of the crop content for Genshin for sure. Experiencing the Hangout Events of Genshin Impact's characters. I will be completely honest with you guys. The Hangouts are kind of overkill for me. I have 6 Hangouts that I still need to do. And for me, it's not the fact that I'm not looking forward to doing it. It's the fact that because I'm so thorough, it is so taxing for me to know that Beto's Hangout for me is going to take at least 2 hours to get through all of the endings. And then I got to do that for Sayu, Toma, Ningguang, Yunjin, and Goro. So I have 6 fucking characters and it takes me about 2 hours or so. Like I can, you know, I read everything. I go through everything in it's a process, right? I did it for the other Hangouts. I'm doing it for these Hangouts, but 2 hours per, that's a minimum of 12 hours that I have to invest in those Hangouts. And that's not fucking fun. It's only fun for me the first time I go through it, genuinely. Like all of the Hangouts that I've done before, the first run through where I'm not worrying about getting all the endings, those are the ones that I retain the most. Noelle under the Windrise tree, Bennett and I discovering the, you know, the secret treasure or whatever in his Hangout. Like some of those Hangouts, like it's usually the first experience that is the lasting impression for me. And then all of the other ones feel like busy work. You know what I mean? Like, oh my God, I can't believe I thought you liked everything about Genshin, Arnold. No, like that's the big reason why I'm like holding off on doing these Hangouts, because it's such a fucking investment. To the point where I think I just might do my first run of the Hangouts just to kind kind of get that initial experience out of the way and then just do the other ones on my own time, because it's just not worth the time investment, especially since my time is so finite with Genshin. So I do think Hangouts for most people were something that we thought would give us an opportunity to be more time with the characters. But I just think MiHoYo should just reel it back and just take the time to give characters a quest. Like, I'd be fucking mortified. Like, I'm mortified that some characters like Xiangling, like, imagine if they gave Xiangling a hangout instead of a character quest after we experienced hers already. You know what I mean? Like, it's such a downgrade. It's not even funny. It's such a fucking downgrade. And so it sucks that characters that I love, like Bennett, like Chongyun, you know, like Noelle, like Diona, are like relegated to, hey, we can't put as much investment into a character like you, so we're gonna give you this, we're gonna give you even less experience with these characters, and hopefully it makes up for it, you know? So, I would just prefer they get rid of Hangouts altogether and just stick with giving us, I would much rather have one quality experience with these characters than have 5 different mundane experiences that have no lasting impact on me personally. And that's what the Hangouts feel like for the most part. The first time around it's great, but then everything else after that, I'm just like, you know, it's like, cool, this is content, this is awesome, I can stream the game longer, but I'd much rather be doing other meaningful things personally. So Hangouts for me haven't been hitting for a while. I'm still gonna go through Betos at least because I fucking love her, and like any excuse to spend time with Beto is great, but they definitely need to figure out how to rework these in a much better, in a way that's far more engaging and exciting. And I think ultimately that's, and it sucks too, because I don't think MiHoYo would ever just wholesale abandon any one of the features or systems that they've put into the game. So to be like, hey, just get rid of Hangouts and bring back all of the, and just give characters like character quests, I don't think that they would do that, unfortunately. Experiencing the story quests of Genshin Impact's characters, I personally think that some of the story quests are just as good as the Archon quests, and I know that I'm going to be in the vast minority compared to other people who have voiced their opinions on these surveys, because, you know, some quest lines, people think, you know, I never want to feel like I'm taking jabs at other content creators when I bring them up, but I also feel like in some cases I am the antithesis of what some people, of how some people play the game, right? You know, Tectone makes an interesting point of like, he feels like a character quest or a story quest regarding a character should be solely focused on that character, right? Yai Miko is the recent story quest of topic that, you know, he mentions, like, why would she be talking to these other nameless NPCs when it takes away from her? Or at the very least, if she's going to talk to other characters, it should be other characters that we know and care about, which I understand where he's coming from with that, right? It's like, I don't really remember most of the characters' names of her world quest, of her story quest, unfortunately, just because, number one, I'm bad with pronouncing Inazuma names, but also they serve the purpose of, at the very least, contextualizing who Yai Miko is as a person. Ruthless businesswoman, big ass troll, knows how to have fun, and she cares about she's very spiritual in the sense of like her as a yokai, the past of Inazuma, and the well-being of humans as a whole. That's at least what I took away from the story. I didn't need Yai Miko to be the center of attention at all times, even though I was talking to other characters, because there was so much more depth, there was so much more under the surface beyond Yai Miko's here, do something so that way it feels like we're getting more out of you as a character. I'm not saying that like, oh, if you didn't understand that, you're an idiot and you don't know what you don't understand like MiHoYo's writing. You know, it's all interpretation. It's all, you know, everyone has their different experiences. But for me, it doesn't really have to be focused solely on the character for me to understand what the message is trying to convey. Or at the very least, I took away a lot more from Yai Miko than the average person that maybe wanted to see her in action or wanted more of her than just simply trying to write a book. And I understand that, but personally, I think like some of the quests that a lot of people are turned off by, like I loved Hu Tao's quest. I think Hu Tao's story quest is probably at this point either my 4th or my 5th favorite world story quest, behind Venti's, Zhongli's, Raiden Shogun A, both her part 1 and her part 2. I actually really liked her part 1 quest. People can criticize and argue, does she really, you know, it's cool to show that she's changed, but there were better ways that they could have done it instead of, you know, fan fiction and dongo milkshakes. But the message still was conveyed to me at the very least. How do I feel like I'm rambling at this point. How do I word this? I try to find value in these quests that go beyond what's given to me at face value. You know, a lot of people mention like like Yai Miko's quest was underwhelming because you're talking to all these characters that you don't give a fuck about, these NPCs, these characters you can't play as, that you'll never see again, etc., etc. However, most people will say that Venti's story quest is one of the best quests in the game. And it's funny, the irony of that, considering how that quest doesn't really focus on Venti as much as it focuses on Stanley, who is a NPC of the world that you'll never care about and you'll never see again. But he, an NPC like Stanley, was necessary to contextualize Venti's suffering, Venti's hardships, Venti's past, and the fact that he can relate to the average person. So it's very interesting how people value playable characters versus non-playable characters, and how some people overlook the purpose of an NPC, the purpose of an everyday man or woman or whatever the case might be, you know? So that's just my personal take. I really like the story quests. I think there have been some story quests that have been better than others, but I don't think there's any story quest in the game that I would say, damn, that was underwhelming, or I didn't really enjoy that, or I hated that. It's usually just based on, I try to compare them to other story quests, or at the very least, my relationship with that character in question. Based on your experience playing Genshin Impact, what do you think of the following content in general? Solving puzzles in Genshin Impact's open world? Well, I'll tell you something, my chat loves that because it makes me feel like an idiot, and my chat flames me for it, and they get a good laugh out of me. I think puzzles have stepped up a lot since the game has come out. I think puzzles were first, like, the puzzles of Genshin have always been pretty basic. Mondstadt and Liyue's puzzles were pretty basic. I think the first real complex puzzle of this game, for those of you who had a chance to experience it, was the music puzzle of the Golden Apple Archipelago. And that puzzle was like the first puzzle where it actually it actually stumped me for like a few hours. Like, it took me a couple of streams of going back and forth before I found out how that puzzle worked. And I think that's the first time where puzzles were starting to be like more and more embraced, that people were like, oh my god, I love this puzzle so much, I hope we get more of it. And then Inazuma kind of stepped their game up with their puzzles a bit. Granted, it's still on the lesser side of things, but there were some puzzles like with the tile, like the floor tile puzzles. I think those are my favorite ones, because those are ones that I actually have to pull out a notebook and a pen and actually like draw out the puzzle and like do actual fucking brain power, like do brain math and figure out like how to complete these puzzles. That's when you know a puzzle's really good. If you just look at it and you're just like bing bang boom, okay, I'm done, let's move on, give me my primo gems, then it doesn't feel as satisfying or rewarding. But I actually really like some of the puzzles that cause me to just stop everything I'm doing and just focus all of my like mental capacity on trying to complete it. So I think the puzzles are definitely hitting. I am terrified for Sumeru's puzzles because that's literally the galaxy brain region with all the big brain motherfuckers and academics and shit, and that's gonna make me feel like an absolute fucking monkey. So I'm not I'm not looking forward to Sumeru at all, but nonetheless I hope the puzzle game only gets better as time goes on. Visiting the different nations of Inazuma, such as Mondstadt and Liyue, absolutely, that's the most interesting thing about any new region. You can throw places like Enkanomiya in there too, and fucking Dragonspine. Those aren't even nations, those are just additional set pieces to an already established region, but they like, people are fucking hyped for the chasm. So whenever we get new locations and scenery, right, that's complemented by a new aesthetic. The music is probably the #1 thing on my list of priorities that I look forward to whenever we get a new region. Without a doubt, that's one of the key components that keeps people engaged whenever it comes to exploring and stuff like that. Enjoying the natural scenery of the open world, yep, that you can tie, that's kind of one and the same with visiting new regions. Finding and opening treasure chests in Genshin Impact's world. I don't understand what they mean by that. Like, how it's just opening a fucking chest. It's the most basic thing. I don't really know. I've never had an opinion of the chest experience in the game. They're kind of there. You expect them to be there. It's cool when you find one. It's even cooler when you find higher rarity ones. I really just don't know what feedback they're looking for. Is it boring to open chests? What else are you gonna fucking do exploring the world? Like, my main objective when I go into a world is to look for chests, look for whatever electroculi, geoculi, animoculi, fight mobs, and do general exploration. So the only way that I could see this as chest being a problem is if it comes down to 100%ing a region and it's annoying to kind of look for treasure chests, even with the compass. That's the only thing I can think of. But then again, that's part of the experience. It's like some things are going to be harder, to find than others. I think that's actually a good thing for the game. You know what? I'm just going to leave this one as neutral because I am kind of conflicted on this. Oh, there's more. Holy shit. Yeah, I'm a little conflicted on this. I'll be completely honest. I don't dislike getting and finding and opening chests. Actually, you know what? No, I personally can't say neutral. Like, I enjoy finding chests. I like going for 100%ing in certain regions. I've never had a bad experience with chest finding. If you hate collectathoning, if you hate 100%ing regions and you feel like it's such a chore to do that, then I can understand. Maybe you put too many chests in a region, mijo. You maybe need to fucking slower your roll. Maybe that's something that they can implement or change around. But personally, for me, I don't think there's anything wrong with chests in the game. Next up, fighting monsters in Genshin Impact's open world. I gotta say, there is no challenge to fighting in this game. I have been world level 8 for months. I'm AR 60, and I think fighting, for me, like I said, for me, I've actually experienced a bit of a challenge for the first time in a long time with the Enkanomiya event that just came out, because the new mechanic that they put in play and the level of the mobs are like level 92, 93, and they're actually like tanky as fuck. And I think that gives me a sense of like, actually, I kind of feel like I'm not blitzing through everything that I walk through in this game. And so I personally would like more of a challenge in the overworld, and that's from my perspective. Thing that sucks about it is miHoYo ultimately has to try to find a middle ground, because if I say miHoYo make the game harder, that's gonna be such a turnoff for 90% of people who play this game that are also contributing to the sustainability of the game, that are gonna get their shit pushed in when they realize, oh, they made the game harder because a bunch of people are one-shotting everything because all their characters are level 90 and they have everything in the game. You know what I mean? There is a subset of people like me who are very unchallenged by the game, with the exception of Spiral Abyss. And I feel like if consider world level, you can bring your world level up, you can bring it down, you can keep it at that sweet spot where you don't feel too challenged. And if you don't care about like, I need to have the highest world level so I get the best match, then the game will always be tuned to like your like world level preference. But like at the very least, I don't even really think it's the monsters as much as it is the fucking the world level of the game. If they just increase the world level for players like me who want more of a challenge, then I think that would fix the situation overall. But I do think fighting monsters in the overworld is pretty mundane. I almost wish that I could just snap my fingers and the mobs die so I don't have to waste my time fighting them, because they're not a challenge for me. I enjoy one-shotting. See, here's the thing too, right? I actually enjoyed my early game experience with Genshin before I started artifact farming and like min-maxing and farming and leveling up my characters, because back then I wasn't too overpowered, but I wasn't super under-leveled either. I was running the most unoptimized builds. I was giving characters, I was leveling up the fucking Bell for fucking D-Luke and Razor and shit. Like, and the game was just pretty much like fine. But then after a while, even with power creep and broken characters at C0, it's like, I don't know if miHoYo's just trying to cater to people who just want to feel unstoppable and unbeatable. And that's valid. That's fine. I definitely get that vibe sometimes. But like, eventually it's like, I want not prove something. I want my efforts to be rewarded. I want to know that if I'm building and I'm farming and I'm grinding and I'm leveling up everybody to level 90, max talents, etc., 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 I want a challenge that I can kind of put that up against in a fair way with the exception of Spiral Abyss. So yeah, that's how I feel about that. Gathering materials in Genshin Impact's open world, such as various kinds of ore, fruit, and flowers. This is kind of funny. I'm coming up on max berries, by the way. I think I have 9,400 berries. I'll be completely honest with you guys. All of the materials that I've ever farmed in the game have never been something that I've gone out of my way to do. I have never said to myself, oh, better go collect mint and berries for 8 hours today just to get all of my stuff in order. I've never gone out of my way to farm. I've naturally farmed as I've progressed through quests, through storyline, through exploration, and I've never felt like gathering materials. The only thing that I get annoyed by is when I see other people in there, like other streamers play the game and they walk by materials that are just there for the picking. It's like you're walking by mint or you're walking by, it's like, why not just pick it up? It's right there, you know? I can understand wholeheartedly why that would be boring. And you know what I'm actually gonna do? I'm actually gonna say that it's very boring in the hopes that MiHoYo implements a way players to get better ways of getting materials without going around and farming it. The best example I'll give you is that I fucking hate farming for crystal chunks. I hate farming for crystal chunks and amethyst lumps, and I don't do it. And as a result, I get less mystic enhancement ore, you know, whenever a new weapon comes around. The only time I ever get ore and chunks is from the expedition. Like, I never go out of my way to farm that shit unless it's near a ley line that I'm about to do or something. So I think they actually need to buff expeditions to make up for that. Personally, I think that would work out, because the daily Genshin grind of farming is pretty fucking unbearable, I will say. So yeah, I'm gonna say very boring for that one. Even though it doesn't affect me, I also don't want to ever have to get to the point where I have to go around and farm shit, you know, if I ever run out of mats. So next page. Based on your experience playing Genshin Impact, what do you think of the following content in general? Obtaining materials required to upgrade a weapon.
I'm about to end this man's whole career.
Very fucking boring. Fix how we level shit up, because I do not enjoy the process of pre-farming for weapons in your game. I hate it. I do not like, it's a chore. Like, I literally do it just to get it out of the way, so when content comes out, I don't have to waste my time. But in no way, shape, or form am I ever excited to farm for a new character coming out, a new weapon, or a new artifact set. Like, all that shit is just so monotonous. Like, I literally make sure that I don't listen to any YouTube videos or podcasts during my week, because when I'm like, okay, I have to farm for this new weapon that comes out, I have a podcast to listen to take my mind off of the fucking robotic nature of rinse and repeat that I constantly have to do. I try to find external media to offset the absolute mind-numbing sensation that is farming in this game. So yeah, not a fan of it. They need to find a better way of like making this shit more exciting for people to farm less. Even like, I think even I wouldn't even care about doing it if I just had to do it less, because like at the end of the day, less is more at that point, and at that point, less is more. Clearing artifact domains repeatedly, imagine that. And then you throw RNG in there, and then you throw HP and defense in there. Now you tell me, is that a fun experience? Or is it fun to get fucked by the system? I think farming for artifacts itself is fine, but the end result makes it all pointless. Like, I could literally spend 2,000 resin and have nothing to show for it, with no type of failsafe or no type of reroll system, at the very least, to salvage something. So at the end of the day, I can say, hey, at least I got this, right? Artifact domains is the biggest scam of this game. And I'm so glad that at AR60, I now have artifacts where I just have to hand me down. I haven't farmed for with the exception of the Opulent Dreams and the Clam set, right? I needed that for Kokomi and I needed that for Arataki Ito. I haven't farmed artifacts in months. And the reason for that, thank fucking God, is that in the year of me playing this game, I got enough artifacts for every archetype and every element type in the game to where I just hand me down artifacts. I'm just like, all right, Amber, you're done using those. I'm going to switch to Yanfei. Yanfei is going to get her artifacts. And it's much better to do it that way than to give every single character their individual this and that, because it's just not worth it. Like the return on investment for artifact farming is absolutely disgusting. And I loathe the day when another artifact set comes out, because it's going to be the same song and dance until MiHoYo figures out how to get this shit fixed. But in terms of grinding and farming for stuff, I'm not a fan. Obtaining desired characters. Really, MiHoYo? Really? There's what, 42 characters in your game, and over the course of the game's release, you've given out about 11 of them away for free as a one-time deal for people who were around at the time. And you don't give enough primo gems for people to pull multiple times on your banners. So obtaining desirable characters is probably a nightmare for some people. For me, it's not a nightmare in the sense that like I have to worry about getting a character. It's a nightmare for me in the sense of how much money you're gonna drain out of my wallet. And for the average player, the average either free-to-play, low spend, non-content creator who doesn't make money off of playing your game, to then facilitate money going back in for content. I can't fucking imagine what it's like playing this game. I'll be completely honest with you guys. If I wasn't a content creator, I probably wouldn't play Genshin. And that's like the god honest truth, because I'm definitely someone who wants to experience a game to its full potential. And just knowing that there's some things that I'll miss, there's some things that I won't be able to experience, is a turn off in and of itself for me. And even with reruns coming back around, that, you know, that's another thing too. But I couldn't imagine playing this game like some of you guys do. Like, and for most of the people that play the game at a casual level, at a free-to-play level, at a low-spending level, y'all are like the real MVPs of this game. Like, whales might keep the money rolling in, but like, if it wasn't for the vast majority, the 90% of people who aren't whales to play this game, the game would have failed long time ago. The game wouldn't have been as sustainable long-term if it was only whales that were playing it and paying for it. So like, I can't imagine what it's like playing this game if I wasn't a content creator, to the point where I feel like I wouldn't have played the game if I wasn't making money off of it. Yeah, I know, right? And it's crazy to think that a free game is, it's a free game and its generosity stops there with it being a free game. It's like, this game is free to play. Everything else, it's either going to cost you time or it's going to cost you money. And we have no plans of changing that. So yeah, obtaining characters is probably like the worst factor next to getting artifacts in this game, for especially free to play and low spenders. Because if you're a whale, it's a no fucking brainer. Drop $200, you're guaranteed a character. Drop $300, you're guaranteed a fucking weapon. Make wishes cost less primo gems. Why is it 160? 3 days for a single wish is fucking disgusting. 3 days. So running your daily commissions every single day to get enough primo gems to pull once every 3 days for a single 10 pull. For a single pull that'll probably be a debate club is pretty disgusting. I would say if you want to make getting characters easier for people, and it's at no, like, you'll fucking guarantee people play your game. You'll guarantee people playing your game. I think there should be a bit more rewards given out for people who are consistent, for people who take the game that seriously, to want to log in every day, to play every day. You should reward those players. I'll go even a step further. If you log in Genshin Impact for 7 days straight, every day after that 7th day that you log in is one free wish that will be added to your account for every day. And if you fuck up, guess what? You gotta wait a week before you can start getting those wishes again. I think that's a great way to reward people who are playing consistently, who want something to show for their efforts. And yeah, it might cost you 30 fucking pulls, but at the end of the day, that guarantees people are playing your game, they're enjoying your game. It gives them a better chance of getting the desired characters that they want, which you're asking for our feedback on, and it's just terrible at the current rate. So I think that would be a really good idea. Make people work for it, and then once they reach it, that's another reason that you want to give players to log in every day. It's like, hey, if you miss out, do you really want to miss out on that extra wish? And I feel like that's also a little dubious, because then that's literally getting to the point of like, there are some days where I forget to do my commissions and I get like infuriated. That's a day's worth of friendship XP that I miss out on, and I understand how that can affect someone psychologically and emotionally. So I almost don't want them to do that from that perspective, but I want them to do it from the encouragement side of things, that if you miss a day, guess what? It'll be back. You just have to work for it. And it's not gonna change the world if you break your cycle. You know what I mean? So I actually do think, I know people are asking for daily login rewards, but the thing is, they do a daily login reward once every 6 months, it feels like, to the point where it lost all of its meaning at this point. They should do that every fucking week, but they don't for some reason. I'd prefer if they did a daily login reward every week over this option that I'm giving, and they'd probably prefer that because it's less wishes they gotta give out. But something's gotta give if you want to make people feel like they have a chance to get characters, when you're not even giving them enough fucking wishes for a 10 pull at the end of a week of grinding and doing commissions every single day. Obtaining materials required to level up a character. All of these are all terrible. These are all terrible. I literally feel like I have to commit to doing all of these every single day so I get ahead of the curve. People see my materials and they're like, Arnold, what the fuck? How do you have all these mats? It's like, because I feel like I have to be over prepared than ever feel like I would ever be under prepared and not be able to level up a character to the designated point that I want, or level up a weapon that I need, or whatever the case might be. Yeah, it's such a chore, man. And then on top of that, you got to worry about leveling up your character, leveling up your weapon, leveling up up your talents, leveling up your artifacts. It's bad enough that we got to worry about any one of those things, but to compound on it, to be like, well, you're not done yet. You got to do this and then this and then this and then this, and then you're done. And by the time you're done, 10 new characters are added to the game, you know? So yeah, all of these are bad. I hope that everybody who's filling this out puts these all at very boring to send that message to MiHoYo that we need change. We just do. And it's gonna remain boring until they fix it. So it's never gonna change unless we tell them. And therein lies the value in criticism. I would be fucking befuddled if anyone put very interesting for any one of these, honestly. Engaging in combat with different team comps. You know what? I'll give that a very interesting. The one thing that I love about leveling up, having all of my characters leveling up, having all the weapons that I need and want, is that I get to, like, if I'm ever getting bored with a team comp or a specific character that I'm playing with, I can always switch it up. I just switched out my team right now. I'm using Fischl, Sucrose, Beto, and Xingqiu. Actually, yeah, I think this is the first team in a while where it's all 4 stars. And the team comp's great. It's cool to just see how certain characters interact with each other, how their abilities work. And I'm not a meta slave. I don't do this for meta. I don't do this for endgame. I just do it for the sake of, you know, variety is the spice of life. If I play a character for too long, I will get fucking bored with them. So being able to switch up your team comps is great. I think MiHoYo, at the very least, like I said, since the game, if you've been playing the game since release, you've gotten 11 free characters from them, not including Amber, Kaya, and Lisa. Like, they gave out a free Fischl, a free Diona, Beto, Xinyan. They gave out 2 free Liyue characters over the course of the game's release, etc., etc. So I feel like they've done a lot in that regard. I wish they were more consistent with it for people who are joining in. I actually wish that they gave out a free 4-star for every event, similar to how they give out a free crown. So at any given point when the game is out, someone will have been able to get 1 free character no matter when they started playing Genshin. Instead of, oh, you got the free Fischl, that means you were around during 1.1. You got the free Diona, I guess you were around during 1.2 or whatever the case might be, you know? So yeah, so overall I like team comps. I just wish that, again, there were better ways for other people to get newer characters so they can try it too. Challenging the Spiral Abyss. I think Spiral Abyss is good content. It's not my cup of tea personally, but it is the one thing that's keeping endgame players engaged once every 2 weeks. So I'll say it's somewhat interesting. They do switch it up every now and then. I think they recently just added the Pyrolector and the Vishaps from Enkanomiya. So I'll say somewhat, but again, it's not my cup of tea personally. Collecting Genshin Impact characters. I'm gonna give this one a hard boring because this goes back to the previous one, obtaining desired characters versus collecting desired characters. They're one and the same. It's hard to collect the characters when you make it impossible to get the characters in the first place. You should be ashamed of yourself, by the way. How the hell do you think these two aren't like synonymous in any way, shape, or form? How do you think, oh, obtaining a desired character is really hard, but I do love it collecting the characters that are also hard to, like, no, come on now. Anyways, boring. Fix your fucking character dispersal system. I hope you guys now understand why we're only doing the survey for today's stream. Desired means you have a preference, not everyone. I get that, but collecting the characters, I understand what you mean. I understand what you mean, but I personally think, like, if it's hard to obtain the characters, then collecting the characters is going to be just as hard, even if especially if I want them, you know? But I get the differentiation. Based on your experience playing Genshin Impact, what do you think of the following content in general? Playing through events of each version, such as Lantern Rite. I love it. I can't speak for anyone else, but this is right up my alley with story content, character interactions, really awesome cutscenes, getting a return to see characters that we haven't seen in a very long time, so a lot of nostalgia, returning to old regions, etc. I loved it with Dragonspine. I loved it with Moonchase. I loved it with Lantern Rite. I hope we end up getting fucking Ludi Harpastum at some point. I loved it when we did it for Windbloom Festival last year. So again, this is up there with like story related content. It is limited, which is unfortunate for people who aren't able to experience it. You know, that's the crowning jewel of any patch when it comes out. So it's either you like it or you hate it. But I personally love the events that we've gotten so far. Playing Genshin Impact's matching gameplay, such as matching the challenge domains. Matching gameplay? Oh, matchmaking, like in co-op? I'll be completely honest with you guys. I think co-op in this game is ass. And the only reason I do it is for double friendship experience. And if it wasn't for that, I would literally only play this game by myself. I feel like there's not enough content in this game that's made with the purpose of it being cooperative. I think anything that's in this game right right now is like, you can do this by yourself or with someone else, but it's not designated, it's not created with the intent of being played with other people. And so I literally look at most content in the game as like, this would be more work for me if I got somebody else involved. Like, and that's from, again, my personal perspective. That's not to say like people who play this game with their friends, you're wasting your time. Like, if you enjoy playing this game with your friends, that's fine. From my perspective, playing with other people is more of a chore, especially when it comes down to people being at different world levels. You know, everyone's at a different point in the game, like with the story and stuff like that. I definitely think that there's a lack of cooperative, like an essence of cooperative play, right? Which is why, like, one of the recommendations I would love for them to have is if they have something like guilds in the game, even if there's no PvP, just the idea of having a community driven focus like that inherently wants you to go out and seek other people and have friends and do dailies together, weeklies together, monthlies together, get guild reputation together, like build something together instead of it being everyone is doing their own thing but in the same world. I feel like that is I feel like that's far more meaningful in my opinion. But like, I literally only do co-op to get the latest character to friendship 10, which I'm getting Yai Miko to friendship 10 tomorrow, and then me and Anthony, I'm not going to do co-op for another 3 weeks because there's no incentive to do co-op either. This one means, how is your experience playing the game when it comes to getting other random people involved versus how is it playing Genshin Impact with people that you're cooperating with? Okay, I understand that. Matchmaking, I wish that there was like an NA for this. I'll say boring because I don't play with randoms. And for co-op, I'll also say boring. So all those points that I just made were for the co-op mode. The random one, I never play with randoms. I've only done it like once or twice when the game first came out because there were domains that I couldn't do by myself. Now I'm a fucking gamer. Completing Genshin Impact achievements. I'm gonna say boring just because they literally made me get 2,000 fish to get that one name card. Nobody wants to fucking do that in your game. You've also cucked me on an RNG commission that also has RNG for an NPC that hasn't showed up. I'm talking about Gentry Moutside for the cliffhanger commission, the last commission that I need to have every name card in the game. I've gotten cucked on that one 12 times now. And so it's boring. It's not fun. I feel like they can do a way better job at having some of these achievements be at the very least fucking not so mind-numbingly harsh to get. 2,000 fish. I never want to fish in this fucking game again. Yeah, I might like going for achievements for commissions, but in no way, shape, or form do I find that to be fun, entertaining, enjoyable. It's a chore. It's bullshit sometimes because of the RNG, and they can do a way better job. Playing through the Serenitea Pot system. That's another boring. I thought Serenitea Pot was a cool implemented feature. A lot of people did when it came out in version 1.5, and over the course of the game's release, the Teapot has been very lackluster, very irrelevant. I only go into it to make new furnishings for my battle pass and to get the friendship experience for the characters that I put in there. But other than that, like, the Teapot really has no grander purpose for me personally. I hate doing DIY in video games. That's why I don't play Minecraft. That's why I don't play Stardew Valley. That's why I don't play Terraria and all of these other like creative games, because like that's just not, I'm very right-brained when it comes to gaming. And like, if you give me a game and you say, here, you make the game, I'm gonna be like, I want to go play something that actually gives me direction at the very least. So that's just like, the Teapot's a great feature for people who like that type of stuff in their game. It doesn't, I was never like asking for the housing system to begin with, but they could definitely do a lot better with it. I actually think the Serenitea Pot system would be a great foundation for a guild system. If they do decide to add guilds, tie that into the Serenitea Pot to give the Serenitea Pot more relevancy. You know what I mean? But at the same time, that can't happen unless you increase the fucking loadout of your game. That's another thing too, because the Serenitea Pot loadout is like the crippling effect of the whole system, and you can never, you know, your Teapot will never be fully realized because of that until they decide to fix it. So yeah, that's how I feel. Most of these are trash. The events are great. Everything else is not very cash money, but they can't because mobile. Figure it out. Make it exclusive to console and PC then if that's what it takes. But like, you know, don't put yourself in a box and then complain that you're in a box and you wish you were in a square. You know what I mean? It's like you built this infrastructure for yourself. You should have had the foresight to realize what limitations you do and don't have. Based on your experience playing Genshin Impact in the last 3 months, are you dissatisfied with any of the following? Select up to 5. So I think MiHoYo is a little self-aware here. I see a lot of options here that people are definitely upset with. Some of them are a bit more obscure than others, but like they're not listing out the obvious. They're not listing out like the most obscure, you know? Combat difficulty too high? That depends on the player. And for most people, it probably comes down to your artifacts, your characters are weak, your weapons are weak, your talents are underleveled, etc., etc. You just have to farm for that. You'll be able to one-shot. We'll get into that. Give me a second. I don't think anyone should click this. There's nothing I'm dissatisfied about Genshin Impact, because nothing in this world is perfect, and there's always something that you can criticize. There's always something you can make better. So I would be fucking bad. I feel like the only reason you would click this is if you don't have enough, like, if you're unable to like look critically at the game and say to yourself, what could be better? Especially if you're playing this game for 20 minutes at a time, most of the glaring issues with the game is gonna go right over your head, you know? All right, so let's see. Combat difficulty in Genshin is too high. That's cap, especially for someone like me. I will say this right now, any of you can one-shot characters anybody playing Genshin Impact has the potential to one-shot anything in Genshin Impact. If you're not yet, it's because your character's underleveled, your weapon's underleveled, your talents are underleveled, let's see, or your artifacts are not off. But like, this game is like, the game is laughably easy, especially from a free-to-play the game is laughably easy if you commit to getting to that point with a team comp or with a certain level of characters. Now, you're not going to get there super quickly, but eventually you will get there. So I actually think the game is too easy at all levels of the game. And if you don't care to grind, if you don't care to farm, if you don't care to level up, you're always going to feel like you're under leveled. So I actually don't think I think the difficulty is underperforming. It's too much money to wish for a character. Ain't that the truth? Holy shit, ain't that the truth? I really think it's ridiculous how much money people have to drop to get a character in this game, and to go on to lose a 50-50 to then put more money into getting a character. I know I've been very lucky with some of my pulls, but like at the same time, losing a 50-50 and going double pity is like the worst thing, the worst feeling ever, especially for a content creator, because even if you're making money, the whole objective is to make more money than you're spending, and the more money you save, the better. And I can't, like, again, I can't imagine what it's like playing this game as a non-content creator and spending your hard-earned money on something and not getting it, you know? Like, I couldn't imagine that. So I do actually think that it is a bit too expensive to wish for characters. The design for new characters does not meet my expectations. I rarely, if ever, have expectations for character designs. I don't really think there's many designs in the game that I'm just like, oh, that's unappealing. That's not cool. That's not nice. I think every character stands out and looks differently. New regions are updating too slowly. New regions are updated too slowly. I'll be honest with you, I'm a little conflicted by this answer, by like clicking this option, because as a content creator, I never feel like there's a lack of content in the game. And I feel like my experience is so different than the average person that I feel like an outlier saying this, but I actually think we haven't spent enough time in Inazuma. For the average player who for the player that binges this game and 100% everything within the first week and has nothing else to do in the game, I'm sorry, but I don't feel like the game's designed for you to be playing it at that level. And Genshin should eventually become a secondary game to people. Now, if you're a content creator, I actually kind of feel that way as well. I feel like eventually, if you do everything in Genshin, you can't make Genshin your one and only game. Eventually, I can't fucking wait to get to the point where I've done everything in this game so I can go and play other games. Not because I dislike Genshin, but because I've put so much on the back burner for this game. And I feel like everybody else would love to be in my position if it was the content that they cared about. But because I care about lore and story and world building and all this other shit, like, I'm in this unique spot where I feel like if they just dropped Sumeru on me tomorrow, I'd have a fucking heart attack, because I'd be like, bro, I'm not ready. Like, I need more time, you know? And who else can really say that playing this game or making content for this this game or playing it at the pace that I'm playing it at. So I actually don't think the update, I think regions, I'm expecting a region per year. And I said that after Inazuma came out almost a year to the date of, you know, Inazuma came out, you know, towards the end of the summer, like a couple months shy of the 1 year anniversary. And I'm like, okay, I guess that's the barometer. I guess we should expect a new region at the very least once a year. With these other minor regions, right? We got Enkanomiya, and we're getting the Chasm next, and then we're gonna get the next region. You know what I mean? It's like for the first year, we got Dragonspine, we got Golden Apple Archipelago, which wasn't permanent, but you know, it was a new region nonetheless. And then we got Inazuma. So maybe that's what they're gonna do. They're gonna release a main hub region and then release other sub regions or sub regions to that region before they add another one. And maybe after the Chasm we'll get Sumeru. But no, I'm so bloated with content right now, it's not even funny. So yeah, I just think slow and steady wins the race for me. You have to spend money to have a better in-game experience. That's not necessarily true. Better, I wouldn't say better, I would say maybe an easier experience. I would say a more varied experience, but you could have more fun than someone who drops thousands of dollars on this game and one-shots everything in the game. Like, so that's a hard no for me. The skill design of new monsters isn't interesting. I actually like the monster design, so that's not that. There aren't enough new characters. I'm gonna tie that in with the regions. I personally wish that they would give us a patch or two where they didn't give us new characters. They just gave us reruns so I can save money for 6 weeks and not drop it on a new character and a new weapon. I don't think that'll ever happen. I think the thought of people hearing me say that in the community is probably like, you know, clutching at their pearls, like, how dare you? Characters are content. But like, I honestly feel that way. I hate feeling like it's like a new patch, a new character, a new patch, a new weapon. Like, I just wish I could just fucking relax and chill with who I have on my plate. And I feel like other people who want to focus on what they have on their plate right now don't want to feel pressured to pull for the next character that comes out because they feel like, you know, FOMO, you know, the fear of missing out, or that they already invested or they already got this character and now they got to worry about that character. And, you know, like, I don't know. That's just me, but I think 40 characters seems like enough. One new character per patch, at most one per banner, is enough for me. And yeah, and a lot of people are clamming over returning characters coming back. So fuck the new characters that you're releasing. People want reruns of other characters like Kazuha now, and people who are gonna miss out on all these banners are gonna want Venti again, and Klee again, and Albedo again, and Ganyu again, and so on and so forth. So I think they have enough new characters. I think the pace that they give us new characters is fine, personally. The rate at which the story is updating is too slow. I gotta look through the rest of these to really see. The gameplay of the mechanics in the new region, art quality of the new regions does not meet my expectation. Dude, imagine not liking Enkanomiya. To each his own, but I can't imagine not enjoying Enkanomiya and Surumi Island. Like, I could not be me. The plot lines are not attractive enough for me. There are too many enhancement materials required to obtain. Yes, there's like 4 different type of materials that you have to get to level up your character, your talents, your weapon, your artifacts, you know. Artifacts level up other artifacts, mystic enhancement or level up weapons. It's definitely a lot. It's definitely a lot to manage. And I don't really know what they would do to fix this if enough people complain. There's too many enhancement materials. The only thing I could think of is that they'd reduce the amount, but they couldn't just hard stop and change that system up, I don't think. So I'm gonna say too many materials. Or give us some type of in-game way for us to reduce the cost. Like what they did kind of for the Raiden Shogun. If you're making pole arms, it cuts the ascension cost in half. It's not a lot, but it's something, you know what I mean? So something like that I think would be nice. Not liking the content isn't the same as bad content. Yeah, for sure. Oh my god. The process of obtaining an ideal artifact is boring and repetitive. I just uploaded a video a couple weeks ago of me going through the Vindagnir, the peak of Vindagnir domain, you know, going for Blizzard Strayer and Heart of Depths from my Ganyu, from my Xingqiu, from my Child, from my Chongyun, and I spent 1,000 resin and I got nothing. I got a bunch of HP and a bunch of defense stats on my artifacts, and it's not even ideal. They don't even give you subpar. They give you just flat out worthless artifacts that you'll then feed when they give you a once in a blue moon artifact that's actually decent. I don't even look for ideal in this game. I just look for passable, and even then it's hard. So like, I'm not out out here looking for the perfect artifact with the perfect substats for my perfect character. I'm just looking for passable, decent to get me through the content, to build my character to where they feel competent, they feel strong, they feel like high level. And your artifact RNG completely cripples that ever being a possibility for the reason why I don't, and that's the reason why I don't farm artifacts anymore. So yeah. Let's see. So I've gotten 3 so far. It takes too much time and effort to obtain a character for free. I'm gonna say this for you free-to-play players. That doesn't affect me none because I put money in the game and I make money off of the game, but I'm definitely gonna put this in here because I'm really surprised with how little MiHoYo gives characters away for free. Like I said, the game's been out for 17 months and they've only given out 11 4-star characters. Now, I'm not gonna be like, oh, only 11? Like, that's a fourth of the roster, but at the same time, I wish that they, similar to like a crown, I wish that they did more events that give you free characters over time. Like, I wish that they did that for every patch that they give you a crown, I wish that they had also given you like a free 4-star. Not for me, right? I get 5 free Starglitter or fucking Stardust from that. But for people who weren't around for the free Fischl or the free Diona, at the very least, at any given point, whenever someone's playing this game, they'll always be able to be like, my first free character in the game was this character during this patch, instead of it being so few and far between. So, and even if it's a 4-star, I would much rather people get free 4-stars. Like, if you think MiHoYo is going to give you a free 5-star, with the exception of Aloy, you're smoking some, you're huffing copium of the highest caliber. But no, I do think like getting free characters for free is damn near like impossible. And I'm not talking about the free primo gems that MiHoYo gives you either. I'm talking about if you work for it, you will obtain it. That doesn't happen too often, and it's very few and far between when it does. And lastly, so let me see if I really had to pick. It says up to 5. I know I don't have to pick 5, but I'm gonna put other here, and I'm just gonna harp on this because I'm gonna talk about this again at the very end. Hold on. Make weekly bosses cost no resin. In the last 3 months, yeah, I've fought every single weekly boss every week. I hate that, and I'm gonna go on this entire spiel at the very end, but I hate how content that you're only allowed to do once a week costs more resin. I mean, I guess it doesn't cost more resin per day, but it costs resin, and you can only do it once for rewards. So I'd rather put that there as an extra, just to kind of drive that point home, because we are gonna talk about that at the end again. In the last 3 months, how much time do you spend per day on my god, let me try that again. In the past 3 months, how much time do you spend per day on average browsing Genshin Impact related community content such as Hoyo Lab, streamer videos, user communities, etc.? I would say maybe like 1 to 2 hours. I'd say 1 to 2 hours per day. It's more so like watching a YouTube video or catching someone streaming the game. And then obviously I have my own community as well that my Discord server, I'm always in there talking and, chatting up about Genshin, talking about Genshin, whether it's theories or whatever. So outside of just playing the game, I definitely dabble into like external Genshin media for sure. So I'd say 1 to 2 hours a day. In the last 3 months, how much time do you spend on average per day on gaming Genshin, including Genshin Impact and other days? More than 3 hours, especially if it's a streaming day. So I'd say more than 3 hours, because I farm every day. I do my commissions every day. I do my weeklies every day. I max resin refresh every day. And if I'm streaming, I'm definitely going longer than 3 hours. And little fun fact, we just passed 500 total streaming hours for the archive for my Genshin Impact playthrough archive on Twitch. We just recently passed over 500 hours. And that's just stuff that I've like compiled and cut for videos for YouTube, for Twitch. That's not including like the first 30 minutes that I talked to, like that's just pure gameplay as well. In the last 3 months, how much money do you spend on average per month on all of your games, including Genshin and other games? All right, let's see. I'd say with max resin refreshing, pulling for a given weapon and a given character, I'd probably say I spend about around the $300 range per month, 3 to 6 for sure. Very rarely do I go over that. I only really go over that if I intend to C6 or R5. Why and other games, and what does that have to do with Genshin? I mean, it's just consumer habits. If you're willing to spend money on other games, what can we do to make it better for you to spend money on our game. You know what I mean? It's like, if you don't spend money on anything and you don't spend money on video games, then you're not the target audience. But the whole point is they should obviously, you know, they obviously want to find out like the best opportunities. Like, they obviously want to understand their user base and see who's actually spending money in the game. All right, so there's that. How willing are you to continue experiencing Genshin Impact? Quite willing. Yeah, I'll say quite willing. Definitely willing. I mean, only the future can tell about that, but as of right now, I think Genshin's in a pretty decent spot for the most part. I don't really know what the future is going to hold, but the sooner I caught up with the game, the sooner the game can be on my backlist of, you know, it could become a secondary game. Like, my intention was never to make Genshin my main game, and if I do all the content and there's only new stuff to look forward to, then, you know, it's less of a reason for me to go all gung-ho on it as I have been. But yeah, so we're gonna put this out here too. So how willing are you to continue Genshin? Quite willing. Do you have any feedback, positive or critical, on Genshin Impact that you'd like to share with us? Please leave a note here. Thank you very much for your support, Traveler. Open-ended. So I'm gonna go to the bathroom real quick and we're gonna fill this out. All right, I'll be right back. I got a snack because I'm really hungry. About to speedrun an essay. Gonna write an essay. That's what I say. I'm gonna leave this VOD public forever, by the way. If you ever do a survey and you don't know what to tell them you want in the game, come back to this VOD or the YouTube video when it comes out and just pick a couple of selections off of this, because this is literally gonna be like the definitive, like, we want the, like, everyone's gonna want what I'm listing on this. Everyone. No one's not gonna want these on here. And it's not just my credit, it's my credit, it's y'all in chat, it's people in the Discord, it's my community, it's the greater Genshin Impact community. And so I definitely want people to hone in on these topics. At the top of this list, I have a statement, and that statement is, together with my community, we've compiled a list of features and quality of life improvements that we feel accurately reflects the broad interests of the player base, and upon implementing would only benefit the long-term interests of players, creators, and potential newcomers for years to come. I just want to let you guys know how serious I'm taking this. This is the first thing on the top of the list that I really, really want to drive home. Allow players to pet the fucking animals in the cities that have been walking around and follow us for all fucking time. Why can't we pet the cats and dogs yet? It's version 2.6. Why hasn't this been implemented in the game yet? Now, of course, as you guys can tell, we take things very seriously around here. Being an animal lover is serious business, okay? You gotta give them scritches, you gotta give them scratches, you gotta give them food, you gotta give them love, attention. And I hate whenever I go to Mondstadt, there's like 2 dogs following me and I have to pretend they don't exist. It's bullshit and it needs to be changed. So first implementation, allow players to pet animals in the cities, cats and dogs. Thank you. Now let's get into the meat and potatoes. We need to remove resin costs from weekly bosses. At the time of this recording, it costs 270 resin to go through all 6 weekly bosses. If you're the type of person that wants all the potential rewards and all the potential materials for current characters or future characters that might take those materials. I don't like the fact that it'll cost, MiHoYo will allow you for 20 resin to farm artifacts and talent books and weapon ascension materials to your heart's content. I don't like how they'll charge you 40 resin to go up against world bosses to your heart's content, but content that you're only allowed to do once per week for any meaningful reason outside of testing your character's strength, they charge you for. And not only that, they charge you 60 resin in a game that's pretty much a third of that's a third of your total resin cost, especially if you're free to play, not including anyone that max resin refreshes. Now, this annoys me because when the game first came out, for those of you who weren't around, version 1.1 released with an event called the Unreconciled Stars. And that event to this day is considered by many to be one of the best events of the game, with one glaring blemish, is that it cost resin to do the event, and it cost resin to eventually get the rewards, including one of which was the first crown of insight at the time of the game's release. Now, people bitched and complained about that, and what did MiHoYo do? They took resin cost out of all future events because it didn't make any sense to have limited event and then charge people their in-game stamina system to be able to participate in it over going for ascension materials, or, you know, basically ascension materials, or talents or artifacts or whatever. So, and I was one of those people who used the resin to get my first Crown of Insight back in the day. So I think this would alleviate so much, because if you're the type of person that wants to do all your weekly bosses in one go, it's gonna take you, I think, 2 days to be able to do that, if that's the type of player that you are. Now me, I run weekly bosses as content, one after the other after the other. I go through all 6 weekly bosses, and it costs me 270 resin, which means it costs me my 160 cap plus a couple of max resin refreshes. And at the cost right now, it's half of the total amount of resin that you would get if you max resin refresh. So for people who max resin refresh, it costs primo gems to get resin, and you get a total of 540 resin per day. That's the 360 that you get from max resin refreshing, as well as the additional 160, which naturally recharges over time. That's half of this in a single day. And that's not including the fact that it seems like MiHoYo is going to give us 2 weekly bosses per region. So we're going to have 2 for Sumeru, 2 for Fontaine, 2 for Natlin, 2 for Snezhnaya. I'm assuming, right, on top of maybe we'll get 1 or 2 for Conria if that ends up becoming a place that, you know, has weekly bosses or is an explorable region area. And so I just think taking this out would be a huge liberation for people. Yeah, you're getting free resources, but at the same time, number one, there are people that don't do certain bosses because simply due to the fact that those bosses don't give them materials that they want for their characters. So they won't even bother to experience a boss because they're not getting any return on investment. You know, and that's completely valid, but at the same time, those bosses still give artifacts. They still give character ascension materials. They give prototypes, but it's still not worth it for someone to spend 60 of their resin when they can go and hit up a domain a couple of times instead, you know, or a domain and a world boss, which, you know, collectively, that's probably less time than fighting the weekly boss. So I just think that they need to get rid of this cost sooner rather than later, or at the very least, make all of the resin costs for weekly bosses 30 resin instead of halving it for the first 3. Just, it's half all of them, or just get rid of it altogether. It doesn't fix anything long-term, like it won't change anything long-term, but I prefer if they just made the cost free, and it's one less thing that people have to worry about giving their resin up for. So yeah. So that's how I feel. Add daily logins and web events in-game. Nobody wants to log into Genshin and also have to log into a third-party app or website to do stuff to get resources for your game. It's inconvenient. I feel like only the people that are the most diehard of the diehard are going to squeeze every single resource out of this game that they can. And I feel like it would just make a whole it would just make a world of, it would just be so much more of an improvement to be like, there's some people that also just forget that these things exist because they're so far removed from the game. You know, they added these other features too, where you can jump into the survey straight from in-game, and you can jump into some of the events from in-game. And it's just like, why don't you just do that for the day? Why did you make your daily login not the daily login for the fucking game you're logging in to do every day? It makes no sense. Why are you then giving me log into our website to get the rewards? Don't log into the game to get the rewards that you're using in the game. It makes no sense, and it needs to be changed. So daily logins for sure. Web event makes a little bit more sense, right? Web event, etc., etc. But at the same time, that gets it. You get into the whole like infrastructure of, are you on PC? Are you on mobile? Are you on console? So the web events might not be that easy to implement in the same way, especially with how they function. But daily logins, without a doubt, need to be in game for sure. This is a big one that I'm really annoyed. So this is the big one. Allow Epitomized Path's fate points to carry over to the new weapon banner. I do not know why MiHoYo is so gung-ho on at least having their cake and eating it too when it comes to the weapons banner. But the fact that they have the character banner and they're content with giving you a 50-50 chance of getting the character, and if you don't get it, your next one will be 50-50, and your pity carries over for characters. I don't understand why they think that it's too generous or too much for them to treat the weapon banner the exact same way. It sucks that they even went to this effort to put this epitomized path, and some people still are like, it's not worth, and I agree, it is not worth losing 3 50-50s to guarantee, or 2 50-50s to guarantee your 5-star weapon on the third 50-50. It's just not, especially if you're free to play. And so I just don't know why they just want they want something. They want to get you at least one more time with, they want RNG to be on their side, right? The house always wins. They want RNG to be on their side for that one extra pull. And then on top of that, to add insult to injury, they don't let you carry it over, which is annoying in and of itself, because if you lose your pity, it's like, what if someone decides, I'm going to try to go for this weapon? They lose the first 50-50. It's like, okay, do you want to chance it on that second 50-50? And then if they lose that second 50-50, what MiHoYo's basically saying is they're forcing your hand to be like, well, now you're guaranteed the weapon. Are you really going to let two fates go to waste because we both know that it's not going to the next banner? It's kind of fucked up. It's kind of fucked up in a way, because they literally set you up to at least get you. If you don't get it on that first one, it's like, do you cut your losses out on potentially getting it for the next point? And then when you have 2 of 2, you pretty much have to go for it. Otherwise, those first 2 are a waste, or at least that's what I feel like they're putting on the player. So if they made it so it carries over, that takes the fear out of wishing on the weapon banner away. That makes the weapon banner just as enticing as the character banner for some people. And yeah, I really wish that they had given it the same type of pity system as characters, but for some reason everything needs to be different in its own way for the sake of being different, for the sake of more money, apparently. So these next 2 I'm going to add together because I feel like one or the other would work, but I don't know if they would both work. The first one I put was choose what artifact set drops when you farm. So what I was basically getting at is I don't like how not only do we have to go through the RNG of main stats and substats when it comes to artifacts, but we also have to go through the RNG of not knowing which artifact set we're going to get. And I use the Crimson Witch and Lava Walker set for an example because those 2 artifacts are paired in the domain in Liyue, and it's like, I think they should at least, if they're not going to give us the option of like doing a free reroll on stats, at the very least, you should let me decide, do I want to farm Crimson Witch set or Flame Walker set? Yes, that would relegate some artifacts to never be chosen by the community, because I don't know anyone who does anyone here run Lava Walkers, like actually being serious here? But I don't know anyone who runs Lava Walker. I don't know anyone who runs Thunder Soother. There are just some artifacts that no one touches. And I feel like that's the reason why they RNG it. Otherwise, people would deliberately choose. The weakest link would die out at that point if they gave you the option to choose. But at the same time, it just removes the bullshit of getting an artifact. Like, imagine getting a Lava Walker set with perfect substats, but it's not for Crimson Witch. You know what I mean? So that's one of the reasons why I would like for them to implement us being able to choose which artifact. It just takes the bullshit out of it. It makes artifact farming at least a bit more enticing for people who find it to be, like myself, find artifact farming to be the worst part about this game. And the second option I put here was add more artifact sets to the Strongbox. And the reason I said that too is because if they do decide to go with the first option, it pretty much makes the artifact Strongbox pointless, right? What's in the artifact Strongbox right now? Noblest Oblige, Bloodstained Chivalry, Wanderer's Troop, and Gladiator's Finale. So at the very least, that could still work out because 2 of those artifact sets are obtained from world bosses. So that doesn't change the disparity between those 2. But I feel like the reason why they wouldn't do the first option is because then you can just go farm Noblest Oblige directly or Bloodstained Chivalry directly, and it kind of undoes the purpose of the artifact Strongbox. But I would prefer they do that and they just say, fuck this artifact Strongbox nonsense, and they give us the choice of choosing these 2 because it's only 50% of those artifacts, right? You still have to do world bosses to guarantee Wanderers or Gladiators, and I think that's fine. Moving on from there, allow constellations to be toggleable. I do not like the fact that Bennett, Child, and Zhongli are pretty much unusable with certain team comps because I got too lucky on the gacha and I got more Bennetts than I wanted to, and I C6'd him before realizing, or before even the community realized at the time, how detrimental that is to certain team builds. I can't run my Razor with Bennett. I can't run a C6 Zhongli with Hu Tao because that kind of undoes her whole less than 50% half for her proc and the Staff of Hama proc. And apparently Child C4, which I have C4 Child, haven't used it on him, applies too much Hydro or something like that fucks with his kid as well. This is something that people have been asking for, I think since like 1.3, 1.4, even earlier. I remember a video back in the day, one of the first videos I ever watched of Tectone, where he literally laid out at the very least Bennett and child, and why toggleable constellations would be a net positive thing for people who want to run different team comps, or at the very least use certain characters together. Because, you know, why the fuck would Razor, would you ever put a Razor in a team comp with a C6 Bennett that just undoes his physical damage? You know, why would you put a C6 Zhongli with a Hu Tao when his shield getting hit heals her? You know what I mean? So this is definitely a community-wide like consensus. People have been asking for toggleable constellations forever. I don't know when or if they're gonna do it, but I decided to put this on the list as well, just to kind of echo and vocalize that point for sure. Yeah, I have a C6 Bennett, so I basically can only use Bennett. I basically use my Bennett with Child. Child's like the only character that really is utilized with him because he's technically a bow user even in his melee stance, but like can't use Bennett with most characters in this game, which kind of sucks. Unless they're already a pyro character like Diluc or Hu Tao. You know, they're already doing pyro damage, so, you know, that just makes them better, but like that kind of negates 90% of team comps in the game. I guess, yeah, Raiden Shogun too. I don't remember all of them, but you get what I mean. So this one is actually pretty ironic considering that I'm using Notepad of all fucking things, and I apologize for that because of what I'm about to type here, but add a dark mode option for loading screens. I am literally in pain right now. I'm literally in pain right now typing this out and writing this up because I fucking hate blinding white screens for like the last 10 years. If your website doesn't have dark mode, 10 out of 10, I do not use it. All my social media platforms have a dark mode implemented. My YouTube, I don't use Facebook. My Twitter has a dark mode I use. Thank fucking God Discord has a dark mode. Like, if it's not dark mode, I don't fucking use it, right? I like the initial novelty of like, if it's daytime in your world and you're traveling, your loading screen will be white, and if it's nighttime and you're traveling, your loading screen will be dark. So they have a dark screen for loading screens. Now just do that all the time, or at least give me the option in the settings to have a fucking dark mode so I don't feel like my eyeballs are straining every 2 seconds. I wish there was a dark mode notepad. Apparently there is on Windows 11, but I got Windows 10, so fuck me, right? But yeah, this is actually like painful for me. Every time I blink, I feel like my eyes are slowly like losing more and more liquid and like hydration. I just feel like light is slowly draining, like just slowly making my eyes dry, and I'm in so much pain right now. This is just a natural quality of life improvement that I think would just be nice in the same way that they did it for like the map in general. But for this one, I actually would like it if we could fast travel to the boss markers on the map, similar to how we can do that for the Jade Chamber and the Crux. I fucking hate traveling to the Guiyun Stone Forest and then running from Guiyun Stone Forest to the Geo Hypostasis. It's even worse if you got to fight the Primo Geo Vishap, because that's a little bit of a hike. Yeah, it's first world problems. Yeah, it comes off as boring, but it's just like, it's so inefficient. Just let me travel where I need to fucking go to get what I need to get so I can move on, please. Hydro Cube in a nutshell. Yeah, and it sucks too because when I only ever use the teleport waypoint, like the portable waypoint. I use that whenever there's a mob that I want to farm, but I hate making those things because I think they take crystal chunks, and I'd rather use those on fucking on mystic enhancement ores that I can farm per day. So like it sucks too that like some of these things are pretty well implemented. Like I do like the idea of a portable waypoint, but the fact is you can't have more than one down, and then it's down there, then it's stuck there for like a week. So if they just let us be able to like, and that's what I mean by like artificially lengthening gameplay, because by cutting out a lot of that easy, efficient travel, it's just padding. It's like, well, if you didn't get to travel throughout the world, you'd be playing less. But it's like, sometimes that's all I want to do. Sometimes I just want to farm and then get off. And it would be a lot easier if I can just travel to the boss that I need to farm, you know? Maybe that's asking for too much. Maybe that's a little too privileged of a request, but I think it'd be a quality of life improvement for a lot of people. Similar to how a lot of people thought that scrolling up and down on the map between Mondstadt and Inazuma was a waste of time. That's the best quality of life. That's one of the best quality of life improvements, because no one must, they must not understand the struggle of how many minutes I probably lost on my life scrolling from Mondstadt to go all the way down to Inazuma because I'm on PlayStation. I'm on PC with a controller and I can't just scroll fast like everybody else. My next argument, we need to add a viewable shield meter for players' characters similar to how it's presented with enemies. I don't know about you guys, but I have a really terrible concept. I have a really bad concept of time when I'm in combat. If I put up a Zhongli shield and like 5 seconds passes, I'm like, oh shit, I gotta put up my shield again. It's about to expire. There's nothing in the game that tells me at the very least when my shield is gonna get nuked or when I need to re-up before it runs out. I don't know if they can implement like a mini timer to tell you like, oh, like in real time, like how much time you have left. Maybe you just have track of that shit in your mind. Or between like, cause unless you have like 100% uptime, just wait for the cooldown to end. Yeah, you don't get any type of shield representation of how much. They should actually add it above or below your health meter, actually. I think that would be really nice. And fuck it, you should add a timer as well to let me know if my shield's not gonna break, how long do I have it up? Because I'll be honest, I have no concept of time whenever I'm in combat. Like a second is like a minute to me and vice versa. So like I'll literally do this and like right now I'll be like, oh shit, my shield's gonna die. My shield's gonna die. My shield's gonna die. And the second my thing is up, I'll instantly re-up it instead of just maximizing it for as long as possible. I don't know if anyone else feels that way, but that's how I feel whenever I have a shield user. So just having a viewable shield, because, and the thing is, they do it for enemies, they do it for bosses, they do it for enemies. They have a shield meter that you can perceive when you're fighting them. So I don't know why we don't have our own shield meter that we can, you know, that we can measure for ourselves. I think it would just be a nice thing to have for people who use shields. This next one is gonna be kind of in tandem with the artifact, with like the artifact set thing that I talked about earlier. But I would really like for MiHoYo to implement a way to allow one free reroll on an artifact stat for a recently obtained artifact. So what I mean by that is, you know, like how when you get your artifacts, so if you're doing a run and you're doing like a domain for an artifact and you redeem your resin at the tree and the artifacts all pop up. So the artifacts all pop up and then you get to see your stats before you decide, okay, I want to run the domain again. I think at that moment, like when the artifacts are still up, is when you can decide, is when you should decide, do you want to re-roll this? And then you get to pick the stat, but you can only do it for one artifact per artifact run. I think that would be really nice. Now, I don't know if it could be considered broken if they decided, like obviously if you get a free reroll on every artifact like run you do, that might be considered a little overkill. But even then, I would just like them, even if it's a limit, like you can only do this 5 times a week, or you can only do this, yeah, I think like maybe like 5 artifact rerolls a week, because I don't run artifacts anyway, and I probably would never do it until an artifact domain comes out that I actually am interested in running. But I think with a specific cap, I think a feature like this would be nice at no cost. Like I don't want it to cost resin. I don't want, maybe materials, you know what I mean? Like crystal flies. I think that would be a nice trade-off since we already do that for condensed resin. But yeah, I think that one free reroll for an artifact stat, whether it's main stat or substat, would be nice. If it's, you know, limited in a way that's not too broken. Speaking of artifacts, this is one that I've wanted forever because I struggle with this when it comes to building characters, and that is add a custom artifact preset feature to quickly equip artifacts to characters. It probably takes me like 5 minutes to switch artifacts off of one character and put onto another because I use like a hand-me-down system. So I constantly use like a hand-me-down system. So for me, my Crimson Witch of Flame set is used amongst all of my pyro characters, so I never have more than one pyro DPS character in my team, just so I know that I have the artifact set for the main DPS. And that's kind of how I run my artifacts for all of my characters for the most part, unless they're a support or something. But it's so hard for me to remember off the top of my head because I'm not that great with numbers. I'm not that great with you know, the scaling of characters and stuff. I always forget, okay, did he have this artifact set? Did they have this artifact set? Did they have crit rate or crit damage? Did I go, you know what I mean? Like, did I use this one or this one? So just having, and like what I would like is if it's a preset, and let's just say you put an artifact, you use one artifact and you preset it to 3 characters. Whatever character you hit the preset for, it takes the artifact off of that one character and puts it on the other one, even if more than one character have that preset artifact in place. Just so I know if I ever want to build a character and I push the button, they have the artifacts and nobody else has it. That's mainly what I want. I I honestly feel like it would be easy to implement. I just don't know why they haven't done it yet. But yeah, I mean, I would really like that. And it's weird too because they have almost something like that on the Hoyo Labs website at the very least. They have like where you can even see the character, like you can see other people's characters and see the stuff that they have equipped as well. So like maybe adding on to that by like having like a skeleton, you know, build and just putting that on all of the characters that you want to use it for. I think that'd be really nice. I just don't like the idea that like it takes me such a long time personally to switch my artifacts, and I have every character in the game, and if I use artifacts for one character and then I forget, and then it's so hard to keep track of all of these characters consistently on top of new artifacts coming out, some artifacts being relegated to like being useless and others becoming meta. So it would just be really nice, especially with more artifacts that they add to the game. It pains me personally for someone who focuses on like story and lore and likes paying attention and reading and talking to NPCs, but I still feel like this is an improvement to some people out there who might not care about that kind of stuff and just want the game experience from a gameplay perspective, and that is add a skip all dialogue / cutscene option. And that doesn't just go for people who don't care about those things, and instead of button mashing they just want like a skip all, but also you also have to consider for people who just want to make a new account that they don't want to have to stick to the default of you know, talking to all of these characters again and going through all these scenes again if that's not their cup of tea. I feel like it's an option, and I feel like when you give people options, it's not forcing anything onto someone who doesn't want that. I would never want to skip a dialogue scene or a cutscene, but I would never want to stoop so low as to say, I think that's quality, so you should put up with it even though you don't like it. As long as they're giving me the option to not skip it and someone else the option to skip it if that's what they want, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And so that's why I think this is worth considering. But then they have no one to blame but themselves if they skip important lore or information that they wish they hadn't skipped. You know, at that point they have no one to blame but themselves. If there's anything that I could personally have happen in this game, it's these next two options that it's the next three options that I'm putting here. The first one, I think this is really nice. Add the characters to the overworld on their birthday with additional interactions and rewards. I don't think it's enough to just give us a birthday card when it's Bennett's birthday, Bennett's birthday recently passed. I think they could do a lot more because they can implement these they can implement these features like when the latest, like they can load this information into the latest patch knowing that a character's birthday is coming out during the patch's release, so let's load that into the game and add that to the latest update so when it happens it works out. So on Bennett's birthday, or rather let me just give a better character example, on Shangling's birthday, not only do we get a birthday letter from her, but we actually get to go to Wanmin restaurant and we get to interact and talk to her on her birthday, and she gets to say some interesting dialogue about the day being hers and she wants to hang out with us. And fuck it, I'd go as far as to say give us a little, you know, a little birthday world quest with the character just to have some further interactions, make it voice acted, and give us some additional rewards for that. Just for that character. Give us their, you know, a bunch of their character ascension materials. Maybe someone just started playing Genshin and they really like Shangling after her character quest, and then they realize, oh man, it's her birthday, I want to build her, and you give them some materials for that character. So yeah, I think that would just be really nice to give us more like sentimental personal moments with the character, especially on their birthday. And this second one I'm actually going to add immediately after because I think this would also be really awesome if they could implement it both in the future and retroactively. Voice acting is asking for too much. Considering how 90% of the quests in this game are not voice acted, I don't think that's asking for enough. The only things that are voice acted in this game are actually that actually doesn't make any. Imagine that. Let me spin you a yarn real quick. You know what? You know what I think it's ridiculous? I think it's ridiculous that these characters have something nice to say for us on our birthday, but we can't get anything nice from them. Like we can't have them talk and communicate on their birthday in game. But every year on my birthday, these characters are like, hey, happy birthday, you know? I hope you know what I mean? Like they actually have dialogue dedicated to the traveler. I would like to have some dialogue dedicated to them on their day too, personally. Plus, I'm not asking for cutscenes, right? I'm not asking for cutscenes. I'm asking for voice dialogue. And what you have to understand is MiHoYo is going to implement every voice acted line that's relevant to the story in this game because you can find all of that shit in the archive, whether it's Archon Quests or character quests. So I think it's bullshit if anyone says they can't add dialogue, like voice lines. I'm not asking for high quality cutscenes to be able to rewatch on ad nauseum. I'm asking for voice lines that are quite simple. You know, you have entire character dialogue, options, right? You got every voiced line that is implemented in the game for quests, Archon Quests, character story quests, etc. So I don't think it's outside. I think if anything, if they're gonna add dialogue for voices, it could easily be implemented, even if on mobile. So anyways, with that being said, the next thing I would like is add voice acting to the character birthday messages when they get added to your gift mailbox. So basically, it would be nice to hear Bennett's voice, like just, you know, you could read it yourself or you can press like voice and it's Bennett reading his letter that he wrote to you on his birthday. I think that would be really cool. I would really like for that to happen as well. Yeah, Bennett's birthday recently just passed, so that's why I'm using Bennett for a lot of these examples. A lot of these implementations really come down to like the character moments, like character growth or character interactions. I personally care about that shit, so a lot of these might just really come down to me as a player. But again, this is my survey, this is my feedback, my community's feedback. So at the end of the day, I feel like it's still worth suggesting that they implement these. That would just make the game a more enriching experience for me, who focuses on story, characters, and lore. I would like greater rewards for friendship levels. I like the name cards, but I don't think the name cards are worth it if, how do I word this? I wish that there were greater rewards to show how far you went with a character, especially getting them to friendship 10. And this is coming from someone that as of the release of Yai Miko, I have every character at friendship 10. The name cards are great, right? At friendship 6, you get all of their lore. At friendship 7, you get all of their Serenitea Pot dialogue. And at friendship 10, you get a name card. But unless you're pumping money into the game for max resin refreshes and you're playing on co-op to get double friendship EXP, it's gonna be a long process to go through all the stuff that it takes to get a character to friendship 10. And you could do that based on the character being your favorite and, you know, them being in your party the most. But I just think there would be, like, I just wish that there were more rewards for achieving a feat like that, especially for multiple characters. So I don't know if a wing glider or a new outfit is justifiable for something like that, right? Because we're like paying for outfits for the most part, or doing whole events for outfits, and like we're completing like long-winded content for wing gliders, like especially in the reputation system. So I just put wing glider and outfit here as like potential ideas, but I don't know, maybe just give like, you know, like how you level up, like every time you ascend a character, like you get 3 quaint fates. Maybe pair a couple fates with a character once you get them to friendship 10, just to kind of be like an added incentive to like, here's a greater reward because you grinded with this character to max friendship, you know? I think that would be nice at the very least. Next up, really hope they get to do this because they've implemented on this a couple times, but add Serenitea Pot abodes based on Dragonspine and Unconomia. So far right now, we have one for Mondstadt, one for Liyue, one for Inazuma, and one of them that kind of reminds me of like a mix between Mondstadt and like the Golden Apple Archipelago, just because of like the green, and one of them has like a beach, so that one gives me like big like Golden Apple Archipelago vibes, like tropical and like the beach and the sand and the water and all that stuff. So yeah, Dragonspine's been out for over a year. It's probably it's one of the most unique locations, right? It's all snow. They gave us the snowman. It's weird that they gave us the snowman furnishings for the 2.3 event for Dragonspine, but there's no snow abodes at all, so it kind of feels like out of place and awkward. And I don't know if they have that on the back end, but the fact that they went to Mondstadt, Liyue, and then they came out with an Inazuma one makes me feel like it's not on their list of priorities. Enkanomiya might also be a little too brooding. Also, I feel like everyone would have to have their own Dainichi Mikoshi in that teapot, because that's kind of what gives the aesthetic of Enkanomiya in the first place. I don't know. At the very least, I would love to have a Dragonspine inspired domain, without a doubt, minus the sheer cold, of course. Like, give me all of the visual aesthetics, give me the vibes, give me the atmosphere, keep that cold shit to yourself. All right, so this is for the end game users. This is for the actual hardcore certified gamers out there. MiHoYo, please increase your world level. I'm AR60 and I'm still at world level 8, and it's pretty depressing for me to think that the world level of this game is never going to increase, and monsters are never gonna get harder than they are now. now, I guess. They're not hard right now for me. So the only thing that I can expect is that as more regions come out, the monsters of these other regions will scale greater and greater and greater, which is going to be a huge scaling problem for newer players who haven't had the same amount of time as day one players or 1 month in players or even 1 year in players by the time we get to these other regions, right? Like right now we're fighting mobs that are in like the 90s right now for Unconomia. There are mobs like in the level 90s. And then I'm led to believe, okay, so we have Sumeru, we have Fontaine, we have Shneznaya, we have Natlin, we have Conria. Are these other regions gonna slowly be increasing the point where we get level 100 mobs and we're just gonna have to wait for these other regions for the game to get more challenging over potentially, you know what I mean? Like Mondstadt will never be difficult for me at world level 8. And I guess that's for scaling purposes, but at the same time, I'm AR60. I should be able to have my world bosses, my world enemies scale to where I am in the game, which is AR60. All mobs should be slapping me left, right, and center, no matter what region I'm in. At least I think so. And so yeah, I really think they need to start upping the world level 9, world level 10. You know, I tried to kind of scale it a little bit because it takes like almost a million fucking, it takes like, what is it? It takes like 750,000 adventure rank XP to go from 55 to 58. And then from 58 to 60 is another like 500,000. So I tried to scale it that way. Maybe world level 9 would be better at AR60, but AR60 is going to be still years out for some players. So yeah, I just think that this is like a must have, especially for people like myself who are cracked out of their mind with broken characters. And they're broken because the game isn't acclimating better to them, despite MiHoYo giving me all of these resources at my disposal to then go and break their game, but they're not giving me a challenge. So I will reiterate, I really think the Enkonomiya event gave us some really substantial bosses or like enemy types, and like not only that, but they were like level 92, 93, which I realized I wasn't one-shotting. I was going through like maybe 2, sometimes 3 cycles of my character's abilities before the enemies died, and I was like, holy shit, I prefer that. They weren't slapping me as hard, but it just felt nice to know that I wasn't one-shotting everything. And maybe the Chasm will give that, you know, maybe they'll bring back those Dark Soul looking knights and potentially, you know, make them a threatening factor for the Chasm. I know we have the Ruin Serpent as well. That might be a formidable boss. But yeah, only time will tell. And but that's something that I personally would really like that they did. Generous Troll, I'm adding that to the list right fucking now. Holy shit, that's a great suggestion. We're gonna take a little intermission right here. I gotta add in one that Generous Troll in chat mentioned. Add more pages to the Adventurer's Handbook, and I really like this suggestion. And there are some other suggestions that I have that correlate to this one, but the main one is the fact that number one, the Adventurer's Handbook hasn't been updated since we first got it. Like I think chapter 9 is the last one. I thought they would add on to this once Inazuma came out, because it's like a new region. Okay, we're gonna get more pages, right, to the adventurer book. And one of the things that they mentioned was like it would be nice to not only have more pages so we can get more, you know, primo gems or rewards or whatever, but it would be a nice way for MiHoYo to try to give regional materials as rewards for newer players. Imagine, for example, today you're playing Genshin Impact for the very first time, and the first character that you see on the banner that you want to pull for is Yaimiko, and then you realize you can't play Yaimiko until I think you're AR 35 at least, or AR 40 to get to Inazuma. Not to mention you got to do Mondstadt, Liyue, and then the Inazuma content before you can even have a chance to farm the materials that you need for her. I don't think this is just gonna be like, oh, we'll give you all the mats you need to level up those characters or whatever, but I still think it would be really nice to give you some of the boss materials at the very least, I think. Yeah, I know you're still locked by bosses. It's not a perfect scenario, but I do think that, I think they also need to give a disclaimer. MiHoYo doesn't make it clear that some characters are restricted based on where you are in the game. And I do think they need to either find a solution for that problem, which I think trading would be a big solution. It would require people to kind of find communities and, you know, make friends that they can trade with, or people that are willing to trade with them. Either that or cut the training, like take the training wheels off and release the restraints and let people join the world of any other playable character. It doesn't matter if they're higher level or not, just so they can farm mats in anyone's world, even someone who's light years ahead of them in the story, just so that way the worlds are open to them to be able to get those materials otherwise, like what Anthony has done for me in the past. Yeah, but it would affect sales, but you don't understand, like, this problem is already affecting sales. Like, you have to understand, like, there are people that are aware of this and don't pull for characters because they know they can't build them. So it'll affect sales sales either way. It's just not going to be by their hand that it'll affect sales and become more of a known issue, but it's happening regardless. It's just a matter of like, what are you going to do to fix it? This is one that I think a lot of people, especially endgame players, can attest to and agree with wholeheartedly, and that is they need to add a new permanent high-level combat-focused game mode to parallel the Spiral Abyss's weekly schedule. Hold on, give me a second. Why is this so big? What the hell? Oh, okay, never mind. And so what I mean by this is I don't mean like take out Spiral Abyss, but because Spiral Abyss comes out on the 1st and the 15th of every month, I feel like they should have another weekly event in between those. So if you have one on the 1st and one on the 15th, you should have one on the 8th and one on like the 21st to offset the weeks where Spiral Abyss is, but it just gives us another thing that parallels the bi-weekly Spiral Abyss. I was thinking of something like Hyakunin Iki Plus or something similar to like the Labyrinth Warriors event, but like high-end end game Spiral Abyss level difficulty, because I really liked the Labyrinth Warriors event, and I felt like, bro, just make this a bi-weekly Spiral Abyss like offset mode and make it permanent and change it up and add new mobs whenever they come out, and you know, give each room like a different ability, just so it's something more for end game players do, or something that, you know, is consistent over time, that's not just Spiral Abyss every 2 weeks. And again, this is mainly for the, and yes, it'll give you primo gems, it'll give you Mora, it'll give you rewards and things of that nature, but this isn't for the every player. This isn't something that people are like, I honestly do think that there should be content that is only accessible to players that are able to complete that content with whatever teams that they've built up to that point. Like literally end game. Like this is content that you are expected to be able to beat if you've done all of the other content in the game, if you've built up your characters and your weapons, etc., etc. And again, I feel like those people are the people that are at quote unquote the top are the ones that have the least to do at this point. And Spiral Abyss every 2 weeks is nice, especially when they change it up a bit, but the novelty kind of falls off since Spiral Abyss has been in the game since base, and they haven't added any other permanent content in the game that challenges players competitively, not competitively, but combatively, when it comes to the artifacts that they're building, the characters they're building, the weapons they're building, the talents they're leveling up, and the fact that the world level hasn't been increased thus far. I understand that they're most likely catering to the majority of players who are in this middle ground area where the game is still challenging and difficult, but it's also weird that they made such a high ceiling for potential damage and potential builds, and then there's nothing in the game to match that. And so I would prefer that they have more, like, I would prefer they do something similar to like League of Legends. For those of you guys who play League, I've been playing League for almost 10 years now. League of Legends has this really cool thing where they have like, you know, they have like the standard TFT, ARAM, they'll have Summoner's Rift, and then they'll have another game mode section that they rotate every so often. They'll have AR Earth, they'll have Hexakill, they'll have, you know, Ultimate Spellbook, and like that's like every couple weeks they rotate that 4th game mode around. And I would love something like that, like Spiral Abyss is permanent, but then have other game modes that rotate every couple weeks with each other, like every week or every other week within a set path, like within a set month. I think that would just be far more enjoyable than giving us Hyakunin Iki every 3 to 4 or 5 months, or you know, the Amplifier Initiation event that you know, it comes out once every 6 months and then you beat it in 5 minutes and then that's it. I'd rather it be something more permanent and something that could be changed and modified to be like a continuous thing that you can do for content, or even just for a challenge whenever, and you get rewards with it at the same time. Like for me, Spiral Abyss is just annoying. Like I don't run I run Spiral Abyss, but sometimes I don't even run it. Sometimes I'm just like, yo, Ant, can you go on my account and do Spiral Abyss for me? Because I just can't be bothered. It's just, we're gonna 36 star it, we're gonna get the 36 stars, and then that's it. It's not challenging, it's not fun. It's not worth it in my opinion either, because 36 starring is something that a lot of players can't do, and then at the end of it, you get barely any gems to begin with. So yeah, I don't know. And I know for a lot of people, that's like their main source of primo gems is the spot, like a huge source of their primo gems is the Spiral Abyss every 2 weeks. So that's just my personal preference. That's just my personal thought process on it. Like I said, the further down this list, it's going to get into the less likely, or this isn't going to happen for a very long time, if at all, just because, you know, obviously it gets, you know, I think, or I feel like this list scales really well with possibility and practicality, and and then it just gets further and further down to like wishful thinking, hopeful thinking. It could happen, and if it does, this would be awesome. This is what people want, but I don't know if this is what miHoYo wants or miHoYo intends for their game to be, so only time will tell. This next one is kind of like this could be considered a solution to one of the things that they had in mind for like obtaining characters easier or wishes easier. Give more Stardust and Starglitter after you get a character to Constellation 7 technically. So once you've maxed out a character C6, I think they should give a bit more Stardust and Starglitter that people can just hoard and build up on and save for whenever, you know, a new character comes in the shop or whatever the case might be. Because it does definitely seem like the shops really are only there for people who are whales, who spend a lot to then spend in the shop to then get more stuff at the end of the day. So it's kind of like a reward for people who are already spending a lot of money. And if you're not spending a lot of money, there's not a whole lot of incentive to even like use these Stardust and Starglitter outside of, you know, maybe the characters that come in the shop every so often. And that would be a nice way of being able to obtain free characters much easier, especially since miHoYo is already giving us Primo Gems ourselves. If it's easier or if it's better to get more Stardust or Starglitter if you already have something maxed out, then I think the reward should be, hey, here's a little something extra because you already went above and beyond. At least that's how I feel. Yeah, if you're free to play, Starglitter is really kind of like reserved for whales or people who typically spend a lot on the shop. So, you know, giving that option to, you know, free to play players or low spenders would be a lot better for people to be able to get characters that they want, regardless of, you know, who it's mainly designed for. This is for you Teapot lovers out there. Increase the load for the Serenitea Pot. I'm pretty sure they've been constantly getting like suggestions or feedback for this, and I know that they've increased the teapot limit over the course of the game, especially when they added animated models like the animals and the playable characters that you can have in your teapot that you have. If you want to put them in there for friendship XP, or if you want to put them in there with a set, like with a furnishing set or whatever. It's kind of crazy how much of an overload it is for miHoYo to be like, we can only have so much loaded in to a teapot per character for their servers or whatever. And I just don't really understand the infrastructure of why it's so limiting, especially since there's so much stuff that they throw at you, but it's then limited to like, you can only have so much in a given area, you know. And I just wonder how or why that's the case, you know. And it sucks too, because like I want like one of the options that we're gonna get into is the idea of guilds. And like one thing about like a guild that I feel like would really work is if like you have something like the Serenitea Pot, but for your guild, like your guild mates can all just go into like a hub world together, and you guys can just fuck around and, you know, run around as Chi-Chis and freaking Dionas and Cleas and stuff like that, and Sayus, and just fuck around and be, you know, an awesome community together. But then I look at like this, I'm like, you can't have more than 4 playable characters in your world. Like, how is that going to work with having a massive guild, or like a situation where it's encouraged to have more than 4 people together at any given point? And then you look at the Serenitea Pot, you can only have up to 8 playable characters in a given area. You can't even have any other furnishings around, just those 8 playable characters. So it's just weird. I don't really know how they're gonna do it or why it's such a restriction for them. I don't know if it's their network infrastructure or if it's you know, server size or whatever. I don't understand. I don't know. I'm not a developer. I'm not, you know, an engineer. You know, I'm not a technical engineer or whatever the case might be that deals with this kind of stuff. But I feel like it shouldn't be this restrictive to do those kind of things. And I don't know if they're like, you know, doing like a trickle effect where they're just like, we'll give them little over time and eventually it will become what they want. And if that's and I don't know if that's like a strategy or if that is like, hey, we're struggling with this, but we're gonna try to make it better. I don't know if that's intentional or not, because when you look at Honkai Impact, like, see, another reason why I feel like a lot of this shit is like they can clearly do it is because I actually think, and you guys can argue, you guys can tell me if I'm wrong in the chat, but I think almost, if not all of these suggestions that I've made are already in Honkai Impact, and that's a mobile game, and that's a mobile and PC game as well, that should be able to do the exact same thing. Like, both of these games should be able to do the exact same thing. They use the same character models for some characters, right? I think Honkai is actually less intensive of a game than Genshin. Genshin seems to be more production value, like 3D spaces, open world. I think Honkai is a little different in that respect, and maybe that's where a lot of the developmental differences come from, and because of that, they're able to do a lot more more of these things in that game. But I'll be honest with you guys, I actually think MiHoYo's ultimate strategy is to trickle out these features in their game instead of just giving it to us all at once. So from the outside, it looks like there's progress being made over time. And I'm not saying that that's necessarily a bad thing, right? Honkai had to start somewhere to get to where it is now. And I understand that they want that for Genshin too. But like, it would have felt so much better if they came out of the gate with Genshin in the same state of Honkai was at the time of its release, and then they built off of it from there. Because I'm pretty sure even with Honkai having all of these cool features, I'm pretty sure the game can still be better. But you know, it is what it is. It's a 5-year game, but here's the thing. Honkai Impact might be a 5-year game, but MiHoYo has that 5 years worth of knowledge to know that they can make Genshin way better than it took for them to make Honkai that good in 5 years. What they learned in that 5 years, they can take and make Genshin good on day one. So like, that's what I'm thinking about. Like, that's why I feel like, you know, they added the housing system, they added this, they added that, they added the farming system, but it's like, well, you already knew that this would make Genshin better because you did it in this other game, so why didn't you do it in Genshin sooner? Like, why restrict those features and then add them later and then give yourself a pat on the back when you already have done this before? You know what I mean? It's almost like Genshin and Honkai are like mirror images of each other when it comes to, first off, they're both games that MiHoYo develops, number one. Number two, there's a lot of assets that they share between the two. Number three, the games are like loosely tied to each other, at least in like a multiverse sense, you know, within the same like overall universe, you know, the imaginary tree and all of that. So like, I don't know. It's like, for me, it would feel like a no-brainer, right? I don't know. Ultimately, I do feel like it might come down to server loads, and because Genshin is more of a bigger game, and it's a functionally a different game compared to how Honkai is, I feel like that's where a lot of the limitations come from. But then when they implement these features in the game, I'm like, well, then what was holding you back? You know, if you could have always put the housing system in, you know, I guess sooner rather than later, you know, it's like, it always would have been able to be put in the game. And so, I don't know. I feel, again, I'm not a developer. I don't know how these things work. I'm not going to claim that it's easy to put it in, but at the very least, possible to put it in. And I'm just wondering, I just wonder if it's calculated plan for them to put these things in over time, so the quality of life improvements feel more granular as the game goes on. Yeah, Honkai's not open world. That's what I'm basically getting at. Like, I know that the game is like mission based or level based or whatever, and so fundamentally it's just gonna have a lot more liberties that Genshin doesn't have, right? The ability to play with 4 other people in an open world game with no restrictions to that degree. I definitely I understand that. And that's why I feel like I'm speaking too out of turn, because I don't know if that's what it is, and they don't say anything, so I can only speculate. I can only wonder. But for Honkai, like, just imagine how many features in Genshin have been implemented that have already been in Honkai. When I look at that, when I hear about those things, I say to myself, well, it seems like they're just going to eventually add all of those quality of life improvements to Genshin. And if they're able to do that, and they know they can do that, and they're planning on doing that, why are they waiting so long to implement features that people are asking for, that people want? You know what I mean? And then that's where, you know, we get into the mix of, you know, how is it possible? How long does it actually take? And how you implement that without breaking the game, and so on and so forth. No, I completely understand making a game isn't easy, and I'm not claiming that it is. It's just, if it's possible, you know, if the possibility is there, I don't know. Again, I don't know if it's like, we'll put this in, but we'll put this in when we want to put it in, or we'll put it in when we feel like it makes sense. Certain things like toggleable constellations. What I would love to know is when they start working, when did they decide X, Y, or Z needed to be changed, needed to be added to the game? When did they start doing it, and when was it successful for them? That's what I would like to know. I would just like to know the internal struggles of what it takes to make a change possible in a game that benefits the game and the player base, because that's just the big thing. I'm like, is it impossible? Is it possible? Do you know you can do it, but you're saving it? This is something that they could definitely do, because to a degree they've already started doing it. But anyways, add limited event weapons at R5 level to their appropriate souvenir shops at a high cost. And the example I want to use for this is the event gadget. So if you missed out on the Windbloom Festival of version 1.4, you are still able to get some of the commemorative items from that event. Can't get the Windbloom Ode, the 4-star bow, you know, that's in that event, but I believe you can get the commemorative balloon. Yeah, so you can get the commemorative balloon and you can get the Windbloom lyre, you know, the little mini game harp. And it's like, cool, that's awesome. And you got to pay like an X amount of Mora, I think. I think it's either in the Mondstadt souvenir shop. I also think you can get something from the Granny Shan from Liyue, the lady that's like the toy seller in Liyue. I think you can get some event gadgets from her from like whatever Liyue events went on. And so it's like, well, MiHoYo's willing to do that for gadgets. So why are they so hesitant on not doing that for weapons that people missed out on? And when I say at a really high cost, I mean at a high cost because the level of scarcity for these weapons, right? Number one, these weapons are one of a kind, and number two, you cannot refine them anymore. So to give people a free R5 weapon that they were not present at during a 1.2 event, during version 2.5 or 2.6 or whatever, if this was ever implemented, I feel like justifies a high Mora cost, like in the millions, in my opinion, because some of these weapons are invaluable, like the Cinnabar Spindle, Albedo's best in slot weapon, Festering Desire, a really good weapon, like a weapon that I used exclusively on Albedo until the Cinnabar Spindle came out, and it's a really great weapon in general for like Xingqiu. It has energy recharge. Its ability is really good too. The Dodoko Tails, the Windbloom Ode, you know, and the thing too is like, well, you know, I saw one comment about this. I actually pulled this suggestion from a different community, but there were people that were arguing that, well, if MiHoYo did that, then the weapon would be less rare. And I'm just like, but who gives a shit? Like, who fucking cares about a weapon being rare? It doesn't affect the world. It doesn't affect the in-game economy. It doesn't affect, like, all that affects is your ego to say, I got something because I was there at the time and I get to flex on that. And it makes me feel insecure that somebody else can get something that I got because I was there at the time. I understand that. I understand the I was there mentality, like that feeling of like, it's special and it's something that you can say that you shared with other people at the time. But I feel like it also isolates a lot of people that were around during 1.2, but maybe they couldn't play because work was a priority or family was a priority, or maybe they didn't play during 1.2 and they started playing Genshin during 1.3 and they missed out on a really cool weapon. Or some people that I know who actually did the event and weren't able to do all of the refinement requirements, and they have a Festering Desire that's either R2 or R3 but not maxed out. You know, I feel like this would be a nice way to, at the very least, give something like, you can't do the event again. You might have the weapon. You might be able to say, yeah, I have the weapon on my account even though I wasn't there, but they still didn't get to experience the storyline. They weren't able to experience the once in, you know, essentially the once in a lifetime cutscenes, you know, alongside Albedo and the story of Dragonspine, or the first Lantern Rite, or the first Windbloom Festival, or the first Golden Apple Archipelago. Like, I feel like the experience is something that you can share with others and be like, yeah, I was there for that. I remember that. I feel like that is more something that's like a I was here moment than I have this weapon to show for it that I was there, you know? And so that's why I've partaken in every single event in the game, and never once have I ever said to myself, yeah, fuck those people who weren't around. You snooze, you lose. You weren't around for it. Too bad. Stop complaining. I personally think like the fact that they have those weapons in the freaking inventory, like the archive, and it's like, this is something that you can never get. And I'm assuming it's like a mobile thing. It's a gacha thing. I'm pretty sure other games do it as well. And this might never be something that changes. And, you know, I'm barking up, you know, the wrong tree asking or suggesting this. But I do think that at the very least, even if it's a limited thing, to put these out for a limited time and be like, if you ever missed out on these events, at the very least, we're offering a window of opportunity for you to be able to work towards getting these weapons in the future. I think at least being able to say we're gonna bring them back someday is a lot better than just being like, you have to be here for the time and place, and if not, too bad, so sad. Especially if you weren't playing Genshin at the time. It's bad enough that some of these quest lines that have pivotal lore attached to them are limited events. That's like an atrocity to me, especially since MiHoYo doesn't even have like a way for you to re-experience it in game in any way, shape, or form. But I think doing it for the weapons that could definitely help out free-to-play players especially is a little too much. If you're not doing it for the weapons, why are you doing it for the gadgets? There's a very clear reason why. It's because the weapons have a practical use for players, whereas the gadgets are just kind of fuck around kind of weapon, like items that, you know, aren't going to upset people because it's kind of like a flavor choice. It's like, you'll use the gadgets if you want, and if you don't, whatever. But the weapons, that can actually make your account better, and we don't want to be giving that away willy-nilly to everybody, especially if you weren't here at the time. So I do think that that's something that they should consider. If not bringing back permanently, just bringing like a last chance shop. Like a lot of games do that, where they like either for an anniversary or for like a special function or a special event, they'll be like, hey, for the first time ever, we're bringing back all of these weapons that were one of a kind back to, you know, that were during whatever events of the past. And if you weren't around for it, you'll get to check it out. You'll be able to try it. And if you were around for it for the first time ever, you'll be able to have a duplicate. You know, I think that would at least be, I think that would be a really nice gesture, especially for people who can't even experience those events anymore. I might be speaking a little too far into the future here. This could still potentially happen. I've been talking about this. I think the first time I really started talking about this was when I read the Genshin Impact manga. So at least for people on YouTube, you guys will eventually get that experience or get that commentary from me. But, oh, hold on. Let's do this. Control V. I would like for them to add Archon Quests or limited events that focus on the past. Initially, as we started reading the manga, I said to myself, like, I would love to be able to experience moments of the past from the perspective of the characters who were there at the time. So the Archon War, that'd be super sick if we get to see it from the perspective of a Zhongli story quest or a Venti story quest. I know that they give that to us in the form of cutscenes, but I feel like seeing it and seeing the other Archons at the time and their models, even if it's just a cinematic, I think that would be so much cooler than simply just having like a 2D cutscene or whatever the case might be, like the Archon War, Conria's Fall, the era of the Primordial one back in the day. I think Conria's Fall has the potential to happen because so much of that past has to be visualized in some way, because characters like Dainsleif are around, characters like Lumine are around, characters like Rhine-Daughter, and I feel like it would be hard to kind of explain that story without some type of quest line to tie the past to the present, especially when you think about Celestia's involvement in the grand scheme of the world and things like that. So I actually would really like some past event quest lines. I don't know, like, again, they could already have this planned. Some MiHoYo employees are probably in my chat with pen and paper at the ready, writing this shit down, so in a couple years I can say I called it before it actually happened. But I actually would really like this, and I think some people say that Honkai has some things to this effect. I think Honkai does past events in kind of the way that I'm thinking about, but obviously Honkai's more level-based, mission-based, so it's a little different. I don't know, I think that'd be really cool. I would love to have like the perspective of Lumine and Conria. You know, like, I think it'd be really cool. For example, I think it'd be really cool if our sister, or if our sibling, right, if our twin did like integrate herself into the Teyvat, like into like Conria's culture and history during its initial upbringing, and she is considered your highness because like she was a part of, you know, whether it be Conria or Enkanomiya's heritage and history, depending on how many years it was that she was around before we ended up trying to leave the world. I just think it would be interesting, like, to just be able to see what the sister, like, what I think it would be so cool if MiHoYo gave us like a mini arc of our sibling during the events of what has she been doing, who has she been talking to, how did she experience the Seven Nations in her own way before we woke up and began our journey. I think it'd be so cool to have, like, for me, a Lumine story quest where it's pretty lengthy. It's like a few hours long. It's an entire patch's length, and it would be cool to just see the flip side of things. And because she's been around, like, she was kicking around for like we were sleeping for like 500 years or some bullshit like that. Maybe she got to experience or meet some of the Archons that were before the fall of Conria. You know what I mean? Like the Dendro Archon, or maybe she got to meet Makoto, or whatever, or Zhongli or Venti or whatever the case might be. I just think it would be so cool if she knows things about the world that we also know. That's why she's letting us go on this journey because she's already lived through it. I think that'd be really cool. Sibling, then he says she and her. Well, obviously it's hard for me to remain neutral. I'm obviously speaking from my playthrough experience. So I said sibling because I was trying to remain neutral for viewers, but ultimately I'm going to be biased towards my own experience. Yeah, I know Conria is listed, but we might actually be going to like ground zero of Conria, like whatever it looks like now. I want to see Conria in the past. And maybe we can, right? The God of Time might make that happen. That's definitely a possibility. And maybe we can get that through the God of Time, through Istaroth. We can do those kind of things. We can travel back to the past of the Archon War or Conria's fall or the primordial one, because time is now a factor. But yeah, only time will tell, but I really hope that they consider that. Add a trading system. This will encourage co-op, and more importantly, it'll help new players get materials for new characters faster, and it could also be a really nice community-driven function for people to play together, to trade mats between each other. It kind of give me that same vibe that people had with Animal Crossing, being able to go to another person's island and just trade materials or drop trade even. And it's funny how, like, it's weird how they just don't want people to do that. And I guess it's ultimately because, like, it will reduce the amount of time some other players would have to play if they knew that they had a sugar daddy or a sugar mama that could just give them whatever items they want so they don't have to farm it. But I think at the same time, a trading system would alleviate the biggest issue in the game for new players, which is if you are starting the game in Mondstadt and Sumeru just came out and a new player pulls for a Sumeru character, they cannot build, play, or use that character to the full potential or even over the course of their game because they have to go through Mondstadt, Liyue, Inazuma, and then to Sumeru to then be able to start the process of farming for those materials. And I feel like that's such a underhanded way of being like, we'll allow you to buy our characters for the game to play in, but we're also not going to, like, but it's on you to be okay with, like, finding out about that the hard way. And then it kind of soils the experience too, because, like, your first 5-star or your first character, realizing that that person, like, that character can't even help you through the game unless you stay at, like, can't even stay at low adventure rank because eventually you have to level up your adventure rank to play some of the content in the game. So I think a trading system, as much as they probably don't want to do it, would be ultimately for the better, not just for newer players too, but even like mid-tier players or just people in general that don't enjoy farming or feel like they could have a community of people that could help each other out much better. To kind of, I would much rather be able to help someone else keep playing the game if I knew, like, hey, you know, if farming isn't their forte, I would much rather, you know, give them some materials to help them out than the chance of them quitting because it's too much of a grind or too much of an investment for them. I'd say trading is an option, or do the full open world option and just release region story locks. Yeah, it's weird too because, like, Mondstadt and Liyue are the only two regions that are available for you right out the gate, you know, whereas like all the other ones are kind of like, and we don't really know even too, like the only region that, here's the thing too that we have to think about and consider, Inazuma might have actually been an isolated incident because of the Sakoku decree, because of like the decree that they have there, like where no one in, no one out. So that might have been the only exception to why Inazuma was locked out for the average player. And so they might not make any of the other regions exclusive. Like, unfortunately, they're gonna have to bite the bullet with Inazuma being the only region that if you pull for characters in Inazuma early, you're kind of fucked because that's tied into the lore of why you can't build those characters. They just can't repeat that with any other region. If they can do that, then they're fine. It's still not going to be fine for new players when they go to those regions if the enemies scale differently for later players in the game, if world level is kind of like, you know, scaled differently depending on how far you get. But that is a much better option. Obviously, being able to join someone else's world would help immensely too, but you can't join someone who has a higher world level than you. Okay, so I thought I put that here. So I would actually add on to this to say, like, consider restraining the world level restriction cap. And I made a suggestion too about this where I think a really good idea would be like, if MiHoYo knows that 4 people are dropping in a world together, they should have different SKUs for those drops. Instead of it being, well, everyone has to be this world level, so we drop one SKU type. I think, like, if I'm AR60 and you're AR10, oh, sorry, let me rephrase that. So I guess if I'm AR60 and you're AR10, and we're both in the world at the same time, and I kill a Hilichurl and it drops a mask, there should be 2 drop SKUs. There should be there should be a SKU for me who's AR60 and there should be a SKU for you who's AR 10, and it'll give you whatever rarity probability based on that. Maybe that's a bit too much math and too much like probability chance and all that other stuff and too complicated, but I think that could work as well. It's gonna take the fun away for low AR players. Fun is subjective though. If somebody like, it's not a matter of fun, it's a matter of like, if I just pulled a character and I'm not able to use them because I can't get the mats. You know how many times I've joined other people's worlds to help them farm for characters and just one-shot them and they're like, thank you, you just saved me a world of fucking pain. You know how many times I've helped people with like world bosses because they're too difficult? Like sometimes that shit's not fun for people. I can go to somebody else's world level because technically they're lower than my world level and one-shot anything in their world. So them coming to my world shouldn't be any different. If anything, I'm just guaranteeing them materials. Yeah, it's just, it's always going to be a problem for Inazuma because, you know, they put themselves in a box at that point. Hell, that's how MMOs work, and that's what I'm thinking about actually. Have drops been world level dependent instead of the ability to join? So I was kind of thinking about that from like an MMO's perspective, but I'm not very savvy in MMOs, so I don't know if that works the same way. But I understand why they have that restriction. It's because like someone who's AR, like someone who's like world level 1 joining someone who's world level 8 would be getting all of the tier 3 drops that they would need in that world because the rewards scale higher. But that should only account for the host. That should account for whoever's world it is. And the other person, it should account for what world level they're at, like their account is at. At least that's what I think. That one might be a little too tough. We have to come back to that one for sure. This is one that I really want them to try to do somehow, some way, especially for me who enjoys like the cutscenes and the story of the game. Originally, I wanted them to import like their files similar to how they do in the archive, but I know that that's going to be overkill for some people, especially on mobile. So I think it would be nice if they added in a streamable in-game theater mode feature, and it's streamable, so at the very least you need to be online, and this game is always online, so that could potentially work. Maybe they could even have it be like a theater sequence in the world of Teyvat where you go with a bunch of friends and you can rewatch cutscenes in-game together. I think that would be really nice. But a streamable in-game theater mode feature to rewatch cutscenes of the story and past limited events. So A, you don't have to replay the entire game over to just see those cutscenes, or B, you don't have to relegate yourself to YouTube because MiHoYo has no other in-game way for you to do it. And again, I think streaming it through the game would be a lot more viable, just because if it's through a streaming service, it's not like loaded into the game's files or whatever. It's just you need like a stable internet connection to be able to experience that. And I think it would be cool if it's like literally like a theater mode, like you and anyone that's in your world can watch those cutscenes collectively. I think that'd be really nice. Yeah, and ultimately it's to be considerate of mostly mobile players, because I think PC players wouldn't care about whatever file size it is, because we have like hard drives in the like spaces. We have hard drive spaces in the terabytes, whereas mobile is still like, you know, some mobile are still on the, you know, very high gigs, but this game is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and like I can't even run Genshin on my phone. After this next patch, I don't think I'll be able to run Genshin. I don't run Genshin on my phone ever. I'm probably gonna have to upgrade to like a tablet or something, because my phone space, I can't really afford to get rid of any other apps to make room for Genshin. And so some people, I don't know how they're making it work with mobile, unless they're playing on like an iPad that has a lot of data or a lot of storage. Yeah, I would just really like that. I would like a way for, you know, a theater mode in general, even if it's just for me, would be nice. I think it would be even cooler if you can play theater mode together with other people in your world, like a shared like viewing experience just for some cutscenes, if they're like your favorite, or if they were for events that you weren't able to do before. Just having it in the game is just so much cleaner. They have the voice lines, and I assume that's just because the file sizes, they're able to get away with truncating the file sizes for dialogue. But obviously when you get into video format, that's when the file sizes can get pretty ridiculous. So yeah, I hope this is something that they consider doing in the future. Yeah, I agree though, sharing a co-op viewing is pretty niche, which is why I said, like, even if it's just for an individual person, that's probably, I would accept that completely. One of, or even two of these things happening would be a big improvement for the game in terms of player retention, and that is increase the original resin cap from 160 to 200, increase the condensed resin cap from 5 to 7, and reduce the original resin recharge rate from 8 minutes to 5 minutes. Now, I'm being deliberate on like the amount, because if you just tell them increase original resin, that's like, what does that mean? Like you know what I mean? You have to be very specific. So like I'd say from 8 minutes to 5 minutes, that cuts 3 minutes off. You know, you're still waiting a considerable amount, but like overall those minutes ultimately add up. Like 8 minutes for one resin is fucking ridiculous. And so like at the very least, this is like trying to get my foot in the door, right? People bitch, like imagine if Genshin Impact was 120 resin still. Genshin Impact had 120 resin when the game came out, and people complained and complained and complained and complained, and MiHoYo listened, and they gave us 40 more resin, but they didn't change the recharge rate. And you know, it still kind of left us in the same spot. It just gave us, as Tectone would say, a bigger bowl to fill up. It didn't really change. It just like, hey, you can have 40 more resins worth of wait time to cap out for the day. But most people cap out their most people, unless you like miss a day or something, like your resin cap probably rarely happens for the average player that's getting on and playing every day. I do think overall resin needs to increase. I think if any of these things are going to happen, right, condensed resin is more of a convenience factor. I hate that condensed resin has a cap in the first place, just because like other than, you know, because then at that point people can literally like, I don't want to play Genshin, but I won't lose my resin because I can just cap. Like it's just a way to make sure that you're coming back and actively playing the game with some type of intent, right? Like they don't want you gone for too long, because like if you just keep stockpiling your resin and stockpiling your resin and stockpiling your resin, then it's just like, well, are you ever going to come back and actually play the game? And then on top of that, if you have all that resin, you know, it just kind of like it's kind of like almost like a way, like a manipulation of their resin economy, so to speak. I don't know, it's weird. Capping out capping out, I feel like is intended to eventually be like, okay, well now you have to put in the work. You know, you can condense resin if you can't play for a day, but then you got to come back and and finish up that resin, otherwise you're gonna start losing some of that value. So condensed resin is more of a this is more of like a convenience thing, because like some people can't play every day, some people can't play for a whole day, and it's like, cool, like for me, sometimes I'll be like, okay, I can't play in the morning, I'll try to play before I go to bed, at least for doing my commissions in resin. And some days if I'm too tired, I'm like, I'll condense this and I'll come back tomorrow and finish it up. That way I know like my resin's not going to be wasted. So just having more of that condensed resin gives me a bit more cushion room to know that if I can't grind like I normally would, if I have obligations or other commitments, that like I won't be losing out on a day's worth of resin value. The original cap, I stand strongly behind this. I think there needs to be a mandatory resin cap increase every year, because you also have to think, as this game gets bigger, the game is going to demand more of you, and it's going to spread your resin resources so thin, especially if you're a newer player. If you're a newer player, like if you're a vet like me and you've been playing since day one and you got all your ducks in a row, like you're pretty much only committed to new stuff that comes out. So your resin isn't being utilized in Mondstadt and Liyue and Inazuma. Now it's kind of being stored up for the Chasm, or it's being stored up for whenever Sumeru comes out. You're obviously still using it, but with the intent of like, once new content comes out, that's what I'm gonna gun for. But there's a lot of people out there that are still focusing on Mondstadt characters, on Liyue characters, on Inazuma characters, on new weapons that are coming out, on new talents, or whatever the case might be. And I feel like the bigger the game gets, they have to start giving you more resources to match spreading all of that around. Otherwise, it's gonna be like the commissions. I still fucking can't believe that eventually we're gonna have 7 regions and seemingly only 4 commissions to choose from between those regions, and that ties in with achievements, that ties in with name cards, that ties in with RNG probability, that ties in with a bunch of bullshit, and then obviously the daily rewards. I actually would love to have put, I didn't put it in here, but you know, give us more daily commissions if you're increasing the fucking scale of your world on top of that. But I actually think we should at the very least get 40 resin increase per year, because you know, they upped it to 60 during year 1 because of the backlash and people complaining, and they're fine with it now. Like I'm not saying the community's fine with it, I'm saying like MiHoYo's fine with where it is now. They took resin cost out of events. I guess they want a pat on the back for that. It should have never been a thing in the first place, but whatever. I think people need to start complaining about resin again, otherwise it's never gonna change. It's never. The only reason we got resin is because people complained, and then MiHoYo did something, and then that's it. And so I really feel like if people don't vocalize what they want in their game, it's not going to change. And Resin was the biggest example of that. And with Sumeru coming out, we're now going to have 4 nations, and there's just going to be so much at our disposal and not enough resources to really feel like we're making any type of significant progress. So yeah, I do think original resin should be something that they add. I'm also going to add another one too. I think they should give us more than one transient resin in the Serenitea Pot. Increase transient resin. I don't really know what to say here. Increase transient resin offering 2+. A fragile resin a day keeps the copium away. I don't think anything that I've suggested thus far is too unreasonable, if at all, to be honest. Do any of you guys feel the same? Do you guys think that any of these suggestions are like, that shit will never happen in a million years? Some of these might. Some of these might. Maybe the trading system, maybe more Starglitter, but I really don't think any of this is unreasonable. If anyone, I think the trading system is the one that probably won't happen, but never say never. If we at least let them know we want it, consider it. It's the sentiment that counts. I agree. Yeah, I'm definitely aware that the trading system is the one that's like very like, but the other one, I feel like this is probably like the most reasonable, especially the petting of the pets. That should be like a war crime that's still not in the game yet. This one's pretty simple. Just increase the world map pin count from 150 to 200. I know they increased this, I think, with the release of Ankonomiya, if I'm not mistaken. Believe it or not, I still like barely have any. And with them adding more regions, I think it just makes sense, because like every region has things that you want to collect or you want to farm or harvest or collect or whatever the case might be. And I also think they need to add more ping types, like the pin types, like add a chest pin. So they have one for mining, they have one for fishing, they have one for like a star, so that could be like for special things. They add one like a clover that could be for like plants. They have like a question mark one, which could be considered for quests. I want one that's like for chests, like in case a chest is somewhere that you know it is. Like for me, like I like to collect my chest on stream, just kind of like let other people know like, hey, there's a chest here. But sometimes there's not enough. There's one for like food too. They have like the chicken. There's the food one too. And I know you can label them as well. Like you can like specifically label like what this pin is for, but visually, I think having a chest pin would be nice at the very least. I don't think the resin cap needs to be increased, because anyone who can break the resin, because anyone can just break the cap using fragile and condensed. That's not what I mean. Hold on. I would like for them to increase the resin refill rate though, because they kept that the same while giving us the bigger bowl. You don't think resin cap needs to be filled because anyone can just break the cap using it's not about breaking the cap. Also, the hard cap for resin is 2,000. What I'm saying is I want them to increase the cap at which your original resin increases. There is a cap, it's 160. I want my resin to be able to naturally fill up until 200. And I also would want, I said also here, increase the, decrease the recharge rate from 8 minutes to 5 minutes. So like, I think both of these should go hand in hand, especially with more content coming out in the game. And mind you, this was originally set at 120. And I wish that they had said that they added, like, I really hate, I dislike how the changes that MiHoYo adds in the game because of player feedback, they don't deliberately say that. They gave us the wing glider during the 1-year anniversary, but they didn't say that they gave it to us because of the feedback. So optically, it looks like they're giving that to us because of the anniversary. Similar to the 160 resin, they gave that to us coincidentally after people bitched about resin not being full enough. So to me, it almost seems like if we didn't complain, we would have still had one. They would have been fine still giving us 120, which is insane. I know they have the interactive map, but again, it's not in game. I don't know why they're so hell-bent on having these external media factors add to the game. Why don't you have that system in the game that interacts with the map itself? You have no proof though? See, well, that's the thing. I have no proof, but at the same time, I have, what's the word I'm looking for? I have, it's circumstantial evidence at the end of the day. But the only reason I don't have proof is because MiHoYo doesn't say for certain, Why increase resin by 40 when, like, within the first 2 patches of the game, when that was when resin complaint was at its highest, but you haven't increased resin in over a year, and you've added another region to your game. Unless it's a consistency thing, like if they added resin when Sumeru comes out again, then I'll be like, okay, I can see the pattern that's going here. That makes sense now. But like the circumstances back then led to it being way, again, like it's like anybody with a brain could think like, well, yeah, obviously they'd increase resin. I would too. I'm getting freaking, people are like, every post they were putting, people were just saying, add more resin, add more resin. I don't think I necessarily need proof to feel like I'm on, like, to feel like when I know like that things are happening without the proof being there, you know? MiHoYo could come out tomorrow and be like, yeah, we increased resin because player feedback. And I'd be like, yeah, of course you did. Like, I didn't need you to tell me that for me to know. But how do we know that the anniversary wings weren't supposed to be added to the anniversary originally? It felt to me that it was a coincidence that they added it while drama blew out of proportion about the anniversary, because they revealed that those wings were supposed to be added to the battle pass. So those wings were originally revealed to be added to the battle pass that you would have had to pay for. And then after the blow up from the initial response of the anniversary or the lack of rewards, then they added the battle, then they took the wing glider from the battle pass and gave it to players for free. So the circumstances of that leads us to believe that, yeah, of course they weren't part of the anniversary rewards, because you showed us that they were going to be a part of the battle pass beforehand, and now you're backpedaling. So there was evidence there. There was evidence there to suggest that. Nobody understands that people would have stopped playing if we had more resin. I mean, ironically, having more resin means people would be playing longer. I understand what you're saying, though. People would get through content like more, but at the same time, 40 more resin is literally 2 more artifact runs. It's not unlimited content. It's literally just like, it's literally 2 more artifacts per day, or 2 more, or 1 more boss run. It's literally like, it's not like breaking the bank for them. It's not like, it's literally 1 more action per day than what we're already getting. They would burn out faster with more resin. I don't think so. I really don't think having 1 more, like if everyone had people would be in the same predicament they're in now. They would just be able to do 1 more thing per day, like make a bit more progress than we've been making for the last year. And I don't think that is going to be build up to this insurmountable level of burnout. I actually I hard disagree with that. If they gave us 200 resin, then I'd say, no, that's kind of a problem. That's where I would feel like, okay, you're giving them too much to do, and that too much progression, that's too much time playing. I'm asking them for 1 condensed resin's worth of running a domain. And here's another thing too. I'm also thinking about myself here. Most people tend to like think of these issues and just think about the new players, think about other people. Like, you also have to think about yourself. Like, are you fine with 160 resin? That's fine, but I might not be. You know, anyone who feels similarly should be able to express that. And if you want higher refresh rate on the resin, that still means you want more resin. You just want more resin per day. If 1 more thing is negligible, I completely get that. Like you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. I completely get that. Yeah. I just think like we're like the cap. You also have to consider the cap for the long term as well. What if MiHoYo themselves decides to increase resin? What then? Are they forsaking this conversation we're having right now for the sake of like, well, you also have to consider, is 160 resin enough for 7 nations worth of content? Yeah, I mean, ultimately MiHoYo has the data. They have so much fucking metadata. I wish we could see it. Not even other people's. I would love to see my own metadata for this game, because they can break down the metadata to a single player. They've done it with the Teapot times, and I really hope that they reveal that to at least us as the players by the end of the game. I would just love to know how much money I've sank in the game, how much time I've spent in the game, how many mobs I've killed, etc. Like, I know some of that stuff is trackable in the achievements, but yeah, like asking for something that MiHoYo will eventually give us shouldn't like that should be fair, you know? It's just a matter of like, I'm not saying I want more constantly. I'm saying I want more that's relative to the scale of the game. What happened to Teapot times? I miss Teapot times. Yeah, they got rid of it. Apparently people were upset that I don't know the reason why, so I'm not going to speculate, but for some reason they stopped doing it. They didn't give a reason, and there's only speculation really. Yeah, I mean, I like having these conversations. I've never really talked about, I don't know if I'll feature like all of this rambly stuff in the video for you. Like, this is gonna be like a 3-hour video, like no cap. Actually, I might have to cut out a lot of this shit, because I don't know if anyone wants to sit and watch someone ramble about quality of life changes in Genshin on YouTube for 4 hours. That's how long the video, I think, it looks like the video is going to be. I feel like as the game gets bigger, it shouldn't be unreasonable to ask for more, MiHoYo's giving us more, but they're giving us more. They're giving us more, but the ability to do less with it. What if I still want to farm Mondstadt? Like, you know what I mean? Like, what if I want to, I don't know. I really just think as the game gets bigger, so should the ability for players to be able to play it and experience it for longer. That might be crazy to say, but I think that's, like, I don't want them to just give me more shit to do when I have nothing to do. I'll go play another game. But, like, when you're actively giving me more to do, more weekly bosses, more world bosses, more regions, etc., more weapons to farm, more characters to build, you can't just keep me with the same resources you've given me since day one, because then the game's gonna feel like I'm not making any progress. This is also from the perspective of someone that can't wait until they're done playing this game so they can play something else. I love Genshin just as much as the next person, but I also, like, I understand, like, this game isn't meant to be a full-time 24/7 game, and for me personally, I definitely feel like some people really depend on this game's success for content or for their survivability as a creator or a streamer or whatever, YouTuber, whatever the case might be. And, you know, that's, you know, to each his own. But for me, like, if I'm going to continue to play this game long term, if I'm going to continue to be invested, I'm fine with where it is right now, personally, because, like, I have enough on my plate with lore and stuff like that. And eventually this will be a second game for me. But I'm also thinking about, like, scale wise, potential wise, future proofing, and just thinking about, like, are people going to be satisfied with 160 resin when there's 7 regions out as a new player, or even as someone who'd been playing the game, you know, next year when Sumeru comes out, or this year rather, if Sumeru comes out by the end of the year. I feel like those are just things you have to take into consideration, not just for the people that jump into your world for the first time, but like I said at the very top here, this is for the long-term interests of players, creators, and potential newcomers. Not really creators, like that's just kind of like a throw-in, because like MiHoYo's not responsible for other people and their endeavors of being a content creator, even though they're choosing to use MiHoYo's game to make content. That's another thing that I really hate. I hate how a lot of people who complain about this game from a content creator standpoint are doing it from like, this game is what makes my livelihood, and if the game doesn't cater to my interests, I can't make content, and therefore I can't grow from the game. I can't, you know what I mean? Like, everyone, obviously you have that right to do so, but I think it gets a little ridiculous when the demands are coming from that perspective of, I need you to make the game better because I'm struggling to make content for the game. At that point, it's like, maybe you should, as a content creator, you should adapt, you should innovate, you should play other games, you should make a new form of content for that game instead of it just being the similar, you know, the same old weapon pulls, character pulls, abyss run, you know, story quests, whatever. That's just my opinion. All right, let's keep it going. We're almost done. These last two are copium inducing to the highest caliber, but I think this is like my pie in the sky. Someday, I pray, I hope MiHoYo does this and adds this to the game, because this will be when I think Genshin will feel like a true co-op community-driven game, and that is a guild system that encourages cooperative play and community rewards with dailies, weeklies, monthly guild goals, a bank/trading system. That's hella copium. Like, that's like literally like pure copium into my system. Guild reputation would be kind of cool, just to kind of like flex your guilds to the other people, like share it, like comparing your guilds to other guilds in the Genshin community. Guild leaderboards and raid bosses. Now, that's pretty much going full MMORPG. Genshin sometimes feels like that in its execution at times. Like, I know it's a single player game, but it's a single player game that you can play cooperatively in a PvE style without PvP. So it almost does feel like an MMO to some degree, even though it's like a mobile game as well. I think that's like peak Genshin, is like the ability, because like other mobile games do that, right? I remember I played Knights Chronicle for a little bit, and I actually really, and like I've played other games too, like Ruby, Amity Arena, like where they have like, they're called, some of them are called clubs, some of them are called like guilds, but it's basically like your own community clubhouse where you add other people to your friends list and they contribute to your guild's reputation. If you do daily quests with them, or if they complete daily quests for the guild's reputation will go up. You'll get leaderboards, you'll get rewards and stats, and like, it's such a community driven, like everyone working towards a common goal, like camaraderie based function that clearly works in other other games, and I feel like it's almost made for Genshin Impact, or it could work for Genshin, right? With the fucking Adventurers Guild. There are guilds in the world. Like, we should just have our own independent Adventurers Guild, like sub guilds for our communities. Obviously, it would be interesting how it works too, because I don't think you can just like run 20 deep into like a fucking area for Genshin. It would probably crash the game. So I still think at the very least, I think it would be nice to have like, okay, four player to a party if you're running guilds. I don't know how I think raid bosses would work too. It would still work within a 4-player capacity. It's just you couldn't have more than 4 people in a space at the same time. And so, you know, obviously it would be tough because some people would want to interact with others, especially if you're a community head, like if you're a Tectone or an MTashed or a MurderofBirds or whatever. Like, obviously people are going to want to interact with you as the guild leader, you know, and other community members. It would just be weird how they do it, because I'm like, okay, how would they do, like, you have like your own guild house and you can like deck your house out with different like memorabilia, like the furnishings and the teapots. And then I said to myself, they should just do like a guild house teapot, or like have like a guild section of the teapot. But then I'm like, the load system fucking blows. The load system sucks ass in the game. So they couldn't even do something like that because they still need to get that shit off the ground. So, or maybe they could, but it would have to be incredibly limiting. But, and like I said, no more than 4 people. And so, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how they would implement it. They would have to get it just right. But I just think like a guild system would make the game so fun for so many people, especially casual players who just already do that. They just play with their friends whenever they have time. And especially for content creators like myself, I would fucking absolutely love to make a guild for Genshin and, you know, have it with like people who watch my content or enjoy me or have similar, you know, similar interests when it comes to the game. It's just such a community driven thing to have for any type of like online game. You know, obviously it's mostly prevalent in like mobile games and MMOs, but I think Genshin is kind of like a hybrid factor of those things. It definitely takes certain aspects of those genres. And so I really think, do any of you guys think guilds would be awesome for Genshin? Are any of you guys actually opposed to something like that? I actually would really like that. Like I said, the Adventurers Guild, it doesn't even feel like a guild. It feels like I'm a one-man fucking army doing everyone's work for them. We can't even go into the Adventurers Guild house, which is so uneventful and so like anticlimactic for being in this prestigious guild that's world renowned apparently. But yeah, I would really love guilds, and I really want that to be something that happens someday. That's like my #1 want for Genshin Impact, is a guild system. And with that, this is the full list statement. I'm gonna copy paste this to the Discord right now, so if any of you guys are in Discord and you guys want to use this for your survey submissions, feel free to do so. The more MiHoYo sees this, the more hopefully they'll take it into consideration. If more than one person is submitting the same thing, I just posted it in the Discord. You can just copy paste. Just again, just to kind of go down the list, if you guys missed out on any of it, if you guys want to copy some of these or take some of these as inspirations for your surveys in the future, be sure to do so. I'm gonna make sure that I include this video on YouTube and on Twitch for people to always be able to come back if they need some inspiration or some ideas, if they need help figuring out like what would be good to add to the game or good to suggest for feedback. The list is too large. You need to you'll need to group them into digestible categories. I don't think so, because we already tested it out yesterday, and there's 10,000 character limit for the survey, and this character limit is less than 2,000 because I can post all of this in a Discord post without any restrictions. So what we're gonna do now is, hopefully, I actually hope this works, because if you're actually right, then I might be in trouble. But we're gonna go back into my mail. We're gonna go here. We're gonna go to survey. I have to redo this because I didn't fill it out yesterday, or I didn't submit it yesterday, so I have to redo this. So we're just gonna go through this process. Hey, see, it adds everything. Let's go. We're fucking gamers. They're definitely gonna read this, right? I hope so. Hey, they said open-ended, so they fucking better. I'm not doing this for my health. But that is it, ladies and gentlemen. That is all of our feedback, both critical and positive, of my community's interests, wants, hopes, dreams, goals, aspirations, pie in the sky wishes. All right, and I hope MiHoYo takes it into consideration. That first one right there, petting animals, that better be the first thing for 2.6 or 2.7 that I see, or we're gonna have problems. I think these are very fair and very reasonable wants for the game and hopes for the game. I think it's a very accurate representation of a lot of other people, whether it's removing resin, whether it's giving us more chances to you know, obtain certain characters that we want, or even just quality of life options like a fucking dark mode, because this blinding white screen is hurting me every second that I'm here. But yeah, I think it's reasonable. I think it's something that, you know, I would like to think it's within MiHoYo's ability to implement. You know, a lot of these aren't really fundamental systems that have to be restructured and reorganized to work. A lot of them are built off of things that they've already done, or things that already exist in the game that can just, you know, need a bit of tweaking here and there to kind of like, you know, making it a special event, or, you know, whatever the case might be. I think a trading system is a little copium. I think a guild is a little copium, and you know, I think those are the two things out of everything that I suggested here that is just like that's kind of like a cross your heart and hope to die kind of, I hope they do this, you know, copium kind of thing. But for the most part, I think it's reasonable. I think it's fair. I think it's valid. I think a lot of people feel the same way. And if you guys do, please, by all means, do not hesitate to take any of these down as suggestions for future surveys as well. I'm going to be basically copying and pasting this exact list every patch and adding on to this if I ever have any extra ideas. And hopefully the goal is, as the game goes on, I would like to be able to remove a line of advice or remove a feedback line as time goes on. And hopefully by the end of the game, we can look back and be like, hey, look at all the shit that we made possible because we voiced our feedback or whatever. Or maybe MiHoYo was never listening to us and they're just on the same wavelength, who knows. But yeah, we're gonna submit this, and there we go. Survey complete. Thank you. Thanks for your help, Traveler. All right, and now we wait and now we see. But yeah, like I said, we'll have to wait and see. I'm looking forward to the future of the game regardless, and I appreciate everybody in my community who submitted their own inquiries, their own you know, wants and needs for the game, and you know, shared it with me and allowed me to be able to make this compiled list that kind of represents all the things that we've been considering and talking about for the game. And hopefully it happens. We'll have to wait and see.